This is going to be on YouTube, right?
Oh yeah, always.
I have a few people asking in the chat.
Dan, you want to get him the link?
I just told him to check YouTube.
Once it pops up, I'll send the link.
Beerfield Hop, as always, joined by Dan Thury at Beerfield Thury. Dan, how are you?
You feel quiet. Maybe that's me.
Yeah, I'm quiet. I'm like yelling over here.
Oh, well, maybe it's me. I don't know. It's been a long day, man. I was telling you off there.
You know what? I know what I did.
Uh-oh. See?
No,
See, it wasn't
we're
just
good.
me.
Am I
now
better
we're
now?
good.
Am I better now?
No,
okay.
Now we're good.
Hold on.
It's not like this
is like live. Nope. Stop. Full stop.
Uh-oh.
Skip ahead. Just save that time. Oh, that's the fade right there. Welcome to Beerfield. I'm host at Beerfield Hop. Chris Hopper, as always, joined by Beerfield Thury. Dan Thury. Do I sound better now?
Not only do you sound better, but I feel like we're off to the greatest start.
That would be a great edit point if we edited anything.
And we don't fucking. I mean, like, I feel like if we're a podcast based around drinking booze and we do edit, it just feels like we're cheating the audience off of golden content. So
we are 100% cheating the audience, but what we're not cheating the audience out of today is our guest. We have one of our favorite guests to have on. The last time we killed a guy, I think the last time he was here. We are super excited to welcome back Brad Starks. You know him as RotoLounge, King of the Bourbon Bowl, and that reminds me. Hold on, I gotta get into some more appropriate attire. Just give me a second.
Oh shit! I wore mine for disc golf this weekend, so it's not clean yet. God, see,
damn.
If I would have known, like, playing this out longer,
yes, sir.
I would have worn my shirt today. But
yes, sir. Represent RotoLounge, baby. The Bourbon Bowl.
I mean, I did play well. Jesus, guys, we haven't even started drinking yet. We haven't even talked about where we're drinking yet. Hopper's getting naked on live YouTube.
This is the beginning. Legendary episodes here.
Jeez,
there were no nipples, so it's still PG-13.
I love it. Appreciate it.
Sweet.
At Beerfield on YouTube, if you want to see what just happened there. Beerfield podcast, I think, actually.
That one's gonna be you click not for children.
Yeah, that's right. Not safe for children. Not safe for work. I mean, I did play well when I wore your shirt in disc golf. I beat my buddy Dickie, so I mean, the shirt brought me luck. I'll just say that.
You were wearing that shirt when we played on Saturday too, didn't you?
Yeah.
He also beat me, but that's less of an accomplishment.
We're not going to brag about that.
If it brings you luck, make sure you wear it for the draft this year. Bourbon Bowl 3.
Well, I'm going to need a little bit of help after last year's fiasco, so I probably need it.
Hey, real quick, why don't you tell people about the Bourbon Bowl and what you're doing there, what we do there every year, and about yourself.
So the Bourbon Bowl is taking me a lot longer this year than ever. I still have some shirts to send out. I still have to calculate to get the remaining piece of our entry to charity. But basically, it's just a group of bourbon lovers that also love fantasy football. We get together, play rules based on, kind of similar to the Scott Fish Bowl, but just kind of unique rules. Just get the bourbon crew together, and the winners and second place get a bottle of bourbon. I send samples out, and then whatever's left, I send to charity. And I'm almost finished with this year, and we're going to get ready for Bourbon Bowl 3. So, it's a good experience. It's fun. The bourbon family is just so nice, and they're good at fantasy football as well. So it just makes it so much better. But if anyone's interested in playing fantasy football with bourbon lovers, find us at Bourbon Bowl, #Bourbon Bowl, Bourbon Bowl 3. That's what we're going to do for 2022.
I don't know how big you want to make this thing, but I do run a 10,000 person bourbon group in St. Louis, so I might be able to market you a little bit.
he knows some people. I mean, he knows he's rubbed some elbows with some important bourbon people.
Yeah,
he likes to talk about every now and then.
Freddie Johnson, Bernie Lubbers.
The first year we did 2 leagues, and then last year we did 6 leagues. So I'm not quite sure, or 5 leagues. I'm not quite sure how high I want to get it, but
that's why I was asking. If you do want to get it bigger, let me know. If not, we'll just keep this our little secret.
It's about to be Scott Fishbowl style, where you should start drawing names of people.
Yeah, I definitely have to figure out how to streamline this because it's taking me a lot longer than I was hoping for to get everything shipped out this time. But I'll work on that. We'll grow it this year. We'll see how big it gets, and then let's see what we can do in a few years.
That's right.
Absolutely. Hey, before we get started, just a little promo here. I did a guest spot this past weekend on High Spots and Kickouts, WrestleMania recap, WrestleMania week recap. So if you want to hear me talk for a couple hours about WrestleMania and, bring some good old-fashioned Beerfield technical difficulty to their show, I was not behind the controls. It was not my fault, but we may have had somebody trip over the mixer board in the middle of that one, and then Audacity just randomly stopped recording a couple times. It was a fun time. It's the only one of the only times I've ever been on a podcast that goes longer than ours. That was 3.5 hours worth. So, but be sure to go give it a listen. It's High Spots and Kickouts. You can listen to them everywhere you're listening to us, except for YouTube, basically.
Does that beat out? Does that beat out the Ball Blast?
It was the same length, except
it's about this. I was going to say it was about the same length.
It was about the same length. We also learned. I taught their co-host, one of my friends, Brant. Brant Dan. That
I do.
Ryan Cabrera is not the lead singer of Dashboard Confessional. That also came up. So, all right. That being said, show's been off the rails since we started.
Great.
We're going to talk, it's NFL draft season, so we're going to talk the 2022 NFL draft here on episode 383 of Beerfield. We're going quarterbacks and running backs. This is also the official start of season 6 because it starts with rookie previews. So,
this season 6?
This is year 6.
Fuck, man.
380 episodes? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, 383.
Just think if we were on we were doing so many year 1 and 2, if we would have maintained that pace, we would have been at the Ballers level of episodes.
17
and making 90 and making 90% less than them.
Yeah. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 5 years. This is 22.
That's right. Wow. Basic math, baby.
Guys, cheers to that.
Oh, thank you.
I don't have anything to cheers yet, but there's a reason for that. So let's go ahead and get to that point. We're going to talk quarterbacks and running backs today. We'll have Miguel Chapton on next week, who is releasing. Oh, yeah, another thing I got to mention because I keep forgetting. We'll have Miguel Chapton on next week, who will be releasing his Pro Football PSI rankings very, very soon through the Faceoff Sports Network, which we are also a part of. So fffaceoff.com to get, we'll be referencing the rookie ADP sometimes. I know that Ryan and Aaron have done a lot of work article-wise there and everything. You can find a little bit about us there as well, but also be sure to check that out. So Miguel with us next week. Brad with us this week. Before we start anything, though, we are actually going to do this first. Nope. I need a drink. Never mind. This is what happens when you don't plan shows.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Brad, you were going to tell me what I'm drinking. So I have this empty glass right here from St. Louis Bourbon Society, Kenzie Glass, stlouisbourbonsociety.com/store new for all your St. Louis Bourbon Society glassware. Cheap shout out. Drew will hate me for that because he actually has to send these. They don't go through our drop shipper. So, anything you think I should try? Anything you have been interested in trying? Anything you see on the shelf behind me that I should grab? I'm gonna let you choose.
Well, I'll tell you what. I have 2 things that I was drinking on. I have a store pick Elijah Craig that I could go back to. I see Elijah Craig on your shelf.
I've got a couple Elijah Craig barrel proofs back there, as well as some regular 94 proofers.
Right now, what I'm drinking, do you have any Russell's Reserve picks?
I do have a Russell's Reserve pick back there as well.
Let's drink those together tonight.
All right.
Yeah, man, you guys are so cool, man. I'm over here like I got like 12 bottles. Some hiding, I think, places.
After this,
all right, dog.
After this, I'll do an IPA with you.
No, I mean, I'm not even. I'm drinking a barrel age.
Actually, one of the first 5 bottles I got when I started collecting bourbon. It's because it's a Russell's Reserve pick, but it's not a very good one, in my opinion. But I'll revisit it. It's been a little bit. This was from Root Brothers Wine and Spirits number 3, which is in Paducah, Kentucky. Comes out of Warehouse D, old style label. So I know yours is newer. This is the older style with the neck tag and everything.
Oh yeah, with the tag.
Yep. So a little bit older of a bottle. I don't think I have a date here. Yeah, no date on this guy. So 55% non-chill filtered, just like normal. So give you a review halfway through. Russell's Reserve, by the way, single barrel offerings from Wild Turkey for anybody that's not familiar with them. Jimmy and Eddie Russell.
Cheers to that.
You want to go ahead and give the stats on what yours is? Just kind of where it's from. Shout out the store. Anything else about it?
Yeah. So Russell's is one of my favorite store picks. This one, I was in Kentucky. I was visiting with Seth, a Patreon, and we were doing a little bottle swap. And I went into a Costco in Kentucky, and they had a full pallet of these Russell Reserve picks. So this is Costco. Shout out to Bo McBrayer. Bo Big Time. This was distilled in 2011, dumped in 2021. So we're looking like at a 10-year Warehouse S, floor 5.
This is a lot better than the last time I visited it. I can say that. Dan, what are you drinking?
All right. Because I'm not, super fancy over there drinking different barrel picks from the same distillery from different times. I am drinking Shocker Distill Rocky Road. This is a collaboration they did with Wren House Brewery. I'm not familiar where they're at. I forgot that I brought this into the house. I was planning on doing bourbon. I may just so grab some at some point. But Wren House Brewery.
Arizona,
what's that?
Arizona.
This is a collaboration with them. Rocky Road is a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout with roasted almonds, cocoa nibs, and vanilla. I've had samplers at the brewery. I was able to grab the last can on my own sampling palette. Yes, I have my own palette of samples that can be very, very large at times. So I get a lot of free beer. Free beer,
Look,
I mean, by
give people beer to drink.
By free beer, I mean by give my customers and everyone else, beer to drink. So, anyways, yeah, that's what I'm drinking.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get into the news here, but before we do that, some sad news to share. I wanted to make sure we all had a drink for this one. Former Ohio State quarterback and Washington football team quarterback, Washington Commanders quarterback, whatever they're going by this week. More on them later. And Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Dwayne Haskins, unfortunately, last weekend was struck and killed by a dump truck while training down in Florida. Teammates were down there with him. Chase Claypool, I think, was there. Mitch Trubisky was there. Deontay Johnson, I think, was down there. So just an all-around sad situation. Loss of, a husband, a brother, a teammate who a lot of people had a lot of fond words to say about. So just, T's and P's out to everybody that's affected by that, and quick cheers to Dwayne Haskins and what ultimately was a solid career for, by all accounts, a solid young man.
Yeah, that in reports you always heard was just how much, he worked on not only improving his game, improving himself on the field, but improving himself as a person, and nothing but glowing, just glowing comments about him We don't need to talk about some of the other shit that happened, when it broke out. But it's very sad, not just a football player, but to see a human being be taken from us at just 20, I think he was 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
It's just super tragic. And, it just puts a lot of things into perspective. So it cheers to Mr. Haskins, rest in power, sir. And thoughts and prayers to his wife. I believe he was married, and the rest of his family.
Absolutely.
All right. On to other things. We got some, before we get to rookies, just some quick news bits to get through. Sammy Watkins, 1-year deal with the Packers, immediately the most talented receiver on that roster. Time will tell if that's going to end up being, somebody you take a shot on, or if the hype's going to get completely out of control as ADP is going to go through the roof for a guy that hasn't really produced in years at this point, and what happens with that.
I think it's just it's a good veteran ad. The Packers really have never shown the wanting to go receiver high in the draft. And while many of us, pegged them to go wide receiver with one of their first round picks, they also have 2 seconds. So it's not a foregone conclusion that they need to go wide receiver at pick 22 or I think pick 28, 29. He can go back in the second round and also select receivers here with the depthness of that. With this wide receiving class that we've seen so far. So, yeah, I think it's a good move just to get another veteran player on the field with Amari Rodgers only in year 2. And Lazard's really the only other veteran on that team, losing Cobb, Adams, and Valdes-Scantling.
I'm a sucker for Sammy Watkins. Absolutely a sucker.
Well,
every year I'm a sucker.
Every year he buys back in.
AJ Green, 1-year deal with the Cardinals, so he'll be back. They lost Christian Kirk. We've talked about how they had a need. Rondale Moore not really panning out, so you're really down to Hopkins, and then potentially whoever they drafted to fill it. So AJ Green will come back on a 1-year deal with them. So it's not unlike the Packers. It's a good 1 year. Is there anything left type signing for a former stud. With AJ Green, he's already familiar with the offense, and they definitely had a need there.
Who's gonna be throwing the football to AJ Green?
Kyler Murray, because I don't think that they don't get that figured out before the season starts. Right
Baker
now, it's
Mayfield.
a lot of peacocking.
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He knows Cliff's offense.
Yeah, speaking of
that's true. Hey,
that
that's
is true. It's a good point.
He did play for Kurt. He did for Cliff.
It'd be very fitting to have him back up Kyler Murray, though.
Yeah,
that'd be my favorite.
Be backwards.
Baker
Mayfield, by the way, it came out. He was pretty fucked up most of the season. Apparently, had a near complete labrum tear in week 2. Throwing shoulder, like full front and 90% of the back, and then dislocated his shoulder again and broke something else in it. So basically only healthy for week 1 and the first half of week 2.
He's no one should ever be questioning this man's grit, this man's willingness. It's already issues when the coaching staff can reel him in and sit him, but you can't question the man's wantingness to be out there and try to play through it, even though he was not very good last year
or the year before.
He had a good end of 2021, or I'm sorry, 2020. He was a big reason why he got into the playoffs. But I am also a Baker apologist. I will not quit him. I file for truth or status on Baker, and I will never quit. I don't give a fuck what happens to him. I don't care who is backing up in next season or this upcoming season.
Hurricane's a nightly appearance on a bathroom trip.
Yep. She hates being on camera, but she's always on there.
Is she every week?
My wife likes to just walk on through
every week. One more note: Dan Snyder $5 million in hidden funds from other NFL owners. This has apparently become a party lines discussion in Congress because the FTC is investigating it. But regardless, the only thing saving him and protecting his ass is that the owners have to vote him out as an owner. If it's true that he kept $5 million in funds from the revenue sharing pool by basically placing the juice elsewhere and, not refunding season ticket holder deposits, things like that, he very easily could end up voted out because, the old white person circle will protect you from old white people things until you start screwing with their checkbook. And then they will not anymore. Dan Snyder could be in a bad way. Which, does anybody feel bad about that?
No, it's a piece of shit. He should be in jail.
He could be. But, what he did does violate FTC trade laws.
It's all right. He can sexually assault women as much as he wants to and do all the terrible things he did, but you start robbing from the rich, my boy, my mans, my dudes. That draws a line right there.
Are you saying Dan Snyder's Robin Hood? No, because he wasn't giving to the poor. He was just
in a very fucked up universe, he's totally Robin Hood.
Robbing from them for himself.
That's right. And not giving it to anybody else.
So there's no bearing on fantasy football. We just hate Dan Snyder.
Yeah. There's so many cookie crumbs to that guy. There's so much going on in that franchise.
So many cookie crumbs, he'd make Cookie Monster jealous.
Maybe we'll get the emails leaked this time.
Yeah.
We won't.
All right. You guys ready to argue a little bit, I hope?
Well, I think Brad's famous words before the show kicked off. It's going to be great. I can't wait. This year's Sherlock. Oh, it's going to be good.
All right. I'm going to work through this in two ways. We're going to go by... How do you guys want to do this, actually? I'll put this to a vote. Do you want to go by... Because I have three things in front of me. I have my pre-draft rankings that we can go by and then shred them apart. I have the 7-round mock draft from CBS that we can go through and then address it from there. And I have the Superflex rookie ADP from FF Faceoff.
Let's do that. Let's give our network a bit of love here.
All right, so we're gonna use Ryan Miner has been running a bunch of rookie mock drafts, which is where this ADP comes from. So, first quarterback off the board per that is gonna be Malik Willis. I think. So just I'll set it up and then we'll kind of toss around to opinion. So Malik Willis being the first quarterback off the board is not something that I have a lot of problem with, because definitely from an NFL perspective, but definitely from a fantasy football perspective, he has the most upside of anybody in this class. He's the most athletic quarterback in this class. He's got plenty of arm strength, plenty of arm talent. He is not who I have at the top of my list. He's 2 on my list. And we'll get into that in a minute, but where are you guys at with Malik Willis?
He's my one. He's been my one. For fantasy wise, it's hard to ignore his type of ceiling, and with us not having a Lawrence or Fields level prospect in this class, you have to reach for the upside in this point. The NFL has told us they have no fucking clue where these quarterbacks should go and win. It speaks volumes to kind of the potential shit show we can see during the actual draft. So Malik's is easily my QB1. I give him the mobility upside. Obviously question marks in this profile for sure. But every quarterback in this class does.
Yeah, I think when you get into this year's quarterback class, you have to preface, in my opinion anyways, when you look at last year's class with Lawrence and Fields and Wilson and Lance, like the quarterback one in this class probably takes a backseat to those 4 right off the bat.
Yes.
Right? So just because they're the quarterback 1 in this class doesn't mean they're going to reach the levels of previous classes. And I think when you talk about it fantasy-wise, Malik Willis hits number 1 because of those legs, right? You hear it all the time. He's not an ideal passer, but his legs are going to bail him out. And in fantasy point, you get points per rush. So, you go with the quarterback that's going to have that rushing upside, like the Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts had 700 yards rushing last season. Malik Willis could do that if his passing's not up to par and he's on the field and he's forced to play. He's going to get a lot of rushing yards. So I think that's why he's sitting at fantasy quarterback 1 right now. Yeah,
and he does some things that, like you mentioned, to me, is this year's Trey Lance. That's the one comparison I keep drawing up. He's a small school guy that has a ton of athleticism. He's got a big arm. He has all the raw talent, but it's exactly that. He's raw. So he's a guy that you may take as the first quarterback off the board, especially in Superflex, and we'll find out where he goes in the draft. He may not even start year 1. The fantasy community will think he should. They'll pound the table that he should, but a lot like Trey Lance, he's also a guy that could benefit from sitting for a year because of how raw he is. But, from what I saw from him, the mechanics were good. He had plenty of zip on his throws. He had running back-like vision, and he runs like one. This is kind of where the Trey Lance comparison comes from. He doesn't shy away from contact. He's not like Lamar shifty. He is running like a running back. But refreshing for this class is he actually throws on the run. He's one of the better quarterbacks in this class at actually throwing on the move, which plays well to, a lot of play action, a lot of moving the pocket. So there are some things that you can do with him if you do need him to start year 1 to build your offense around him. And he does have a decent sense for pressure and will extend plays. That's the one thing you like about quarterbacks that throw on the run is that they're not just taking off to go. You're extending plays. He did not look great against larger schools. That's the one thing about coming from a small school, right? You dominate small schools, but how are you going to do against heightened competition? Again, there's parallels to Trey Lance there. Not great reads on his throws, not great timing on his throws, and that's where kind of the question marks come in about how is he going to be as a passer, because kind of like Lamar Jackson, while the arm talent is definitely there, the reads, the timing and everything wasn't quite there, and does have a little bit of lacks ball security as a runner is kind of what I saw. There's nothing in my mind that says he can't be a starter. There's nothing in my mind that says he can't be productive from fantasy. There is something in my mind that says that he's raw, and there's definitely going to be a learning curve here, even though he has the most upside out of any quarterback in this draft, especially for fantasy football.
Now, before I came on, they announced who's attending the draft this year. Mm-hmm. And there's only 2 quarterbacks that are going to be at the draft, and that's Malik Willis and Matt Corral. So that starts to make me believe that perhaps those 2 are going to be first-round picks. I just don't know where those quarterbacks are going to fall. You look at Carolina as a potential landing spot, right?
Yep.
Look at Atlanta as a potential landing spot. And Detroit, I believe Detroit has 2 first-round picks, right?
Yep.
But then you also have that consideration of a team moving back into the first to get that 5th-year option on the quarterback. So what do you think about Malik Willis, even if he's quarterback 1 in this class? Where do you think he falls in, like, the overall landscape of fantasy football quarterbacks?
So right now, we're using CBS for NFL Insider mock drafts, and right now they have him going this is as of 3 days ago, 20th to the Steelers, which has been a popular landing spot for Malik Willis.
I mean, I've seen, like, just watching how drafts have, like, I've been watching the mock drafts throughout the entire offseason. It's very fascinating to me. I've been talking about it with the listeners. Generally, it's a kind of a way we get to, peek into the minds of what these NFL people could be thinking, obviously based through the people that are writing up and doing these mocks. And Willis has been, I've seen him as high as obviously 2 to Detroit and all the way down to 20. Now, obviously looking at it from a team standpoint, it's a bit difficult to do because a lot of these mocks don't incorporate trades. The ones that do, again, I don't really care how the teams shake up. I want to know where his pick range has gone one thing that we know for sure that none of these quarterbacks can also say is he's always been in the first round. You know, Pickett, Howell, Corral,
all bounced around.
Ritter have always been Pickett's generally been first round, but those four have always surfaced in in late first, early second. I find it interesting that Matt Corral got invited to go, being that majority of the mocks I've seen outside of the super recent ones have him going in the second round. You know, a guy that there's been concerns from his interviews that he showed that he may not have the highest of leadership qualities to him, and we can talk about him when we get to him. But
because I'm going to shit all over him.
Oh yeah, but to go back to Willis, it's interesting because he's one of the most popular top 10 picks, and Howell and Pickett and Corral have surfaced in there, but it's always been Willis generally not making past, pick 12 with somebody trading up with the Vikings because they've been a popular in rumors to be a team that's wanting to trade down.
So Brad, I'll actually answer your question though. He falls easily outside of the top 10 for me in Dynasty, and he should. He's going to be somewhere in that mid-teen range because of the upside, but there's nothing that is surefire in this quarterback draft class, and I don't think any guy can land inside of the top, I would say, inside of the top 14, really, to start their career for me. Even being younger, I mean, he's going to land a little bit further back. Now, for me, where would I put him? I've drawn a lot of comparisons to Trey Lance. It's probably going to be about where I have Trey Lance, which is this black box of massive upside where you haven't seen anything yet. There's a lot of similarities I see in them as prospects, a lot of similarities I see in them as far as their situations go. And I think the upside for those two is very, very similar. But I can't put either of them without some level of NFL performance into that top, that dynasty QB1 range. So they're both firmly in the QB2 range for me.
Yeah, and I hate to burst your bubble, but I'm afraid that Seattle at pick 9, since they have Drew Lock, they need a quarterback. I think Seattle might look at Malik Willis at 9 overall to replace Russell Wilson.
Well, yeah, it makes a lot of sense for them to do that too, though, because Drew Lock's got is it 1 year or 2 years left on his rookie deal? I think it's 2 years.
It'd be 1 year left. So because he was a second round pick, he didn't get the fifth year.
You got 1 year left of Drew Lock. You put a veteran on that team. I think they just re-signed Geno Smith actually. You run 3 quarterbacks. You see what you have in Lock to see if you can even get any form of trade value out of him, if he's going to be serviceable, whatever. You don't have to start Willis right away. It allows him to develop because, do I think Drew Lock deserves another chance? Yes. Do I think you should invest or rebuild around Drew Lock? No. And Malik Willis is a perfect person to land in that situation because I don't think he's ready year one. So you get him in, you develop him. The Seahawks aren't going to compete this year anyway. You've got your quarterback of the future there. So I do not hate that. That's not a bubble burster for me based on, if I'm the GM of the Seahawks, that's actually a great move. And if I'm a Seahawks fan, I'm very happy about that move.
I have one concern. I've been thinking about this, and I've been really thinking about life from what we saw from the Cardinals in 2018 to 2019 when they sucked Josh Rosen at pick 10. 1 year later, they clean out house. They get pick 101 and they select Kyler Murray. Because of the view of this draft class and the view of these prospects and with the incoming class next year and how strong that's supposed to be, Seattle is a concern for me from also cleaning house, right? Malik Willis isn't a prospect tier in the same tier with the guys from last year as we just discussed, not too long ago. So, I'm not going to bake this into my rankings. It's something that's been in my mind of what if Seattle cleans house? What if Carolina? What if Atlanta? What if those teams clean house and the quarterback that they invest in isn't gone because one of those teams ends up with a top 2 or 3 pick? Now, again, that's a lot of speculation, obviously, but there's things like that because none of these guys are these great prospects. None of them are going to be like a Bear situation where Justin Fields can draw in a coach there. I don't know if Malik Willis can draw people in outside of the Josh Allen parallels that a lot of teams are falling in love with.
Yeah, I think that's plenty fair. And, so I want to talk about his floor real quick because I did have a note on the floor side as well as the ceiling side. So, the ceiling side, I think that you definitely could have a lesser version of a Russell Wilson, a better passing version of like a Jalen Hurts here. And I think that that's a fair assessment of where Willis's ceiling could land. And I think that the floor for him at worst is going to be a journeyman type of quarterback, like a guy like Tyrod Taylor, who's, had success in spurts. He's been in demand every offseason and just never stuck anywhere as a franchise quarterback. And that's what I see Willis's floor is, which is still, pretty safe as a piece, especially in super flex.
Tavares Jackson. Remember Tavares Jackson?
Oh, I do. The Vikings fan.
I was waiting for Dan
I'll never
to
forget
have PTSD trimmers.
I don't have any words. That's why I immediately jumped to Jacoby Brissett. I don't want to talk about Tavares. I'm kidding.
Malik Willis is like Tavares Jackson. He's going to have some really great plays and make plays with his legs, but he's a project, man, and it's going to be tough. I think, I wouldn't even be surprised if teams hold off on drafting a quarterback because they might try to send a third-round pick for Baker. This class is just so mediocre. I think, and we can get into the other classes.
Still got Garoppolo, too.
I think Malik is one of the few that has an elite ceiling. Very few in this class have an elite ceiling, and I think he does.
He does.
Because I think NFL organizations say, well, Auburn kicked him to the curb because they had Bo Nix, and, that his dad played there, and then he goes to Liberty, and did they even have the coaching staff to really coach him up? So I think a lot of franchises are like, well, if we bring this kid in and we put him with our quarterback coach and our offensive coordinator, we can kind of develop him. But, I think it's gonna take some time, and he's either going to, become a really good quarterback, or he's going to end up being like Tavares Jackson, in my opinion.
Yeah, and here's
to see. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, here's my red flag on Willis too, right? I have him ranked 2, but my model, when I plug in the way I rate people on film, and I have him ranked 2 just because of how I feel about him. I can't quantify how I feel about prospects in numbers, right? They're just the hunch that I get off of them from watching them. But the model that takes into account combine metrics, college productivity, and then the way that I rate these guys on film, which is just how do I evaluate certain raw individual talents. The film metric is what's really propping him up, and the productivity really kind of brings him down over some of these other guys, especially some of these older guys from counting stats, essentially. So if I were to just go by that number alone, he would be the second worst in this class. But that's why I don't believe in just quantifying people with numbers that me as not a statistician makes up. So he's second because I really liked what I saw on tape, and the potential is definitely there.
So is he your quarterback 2 in this class, or is he quarterback 1 for you?
He's my quarterback 2. Film wise, he rated a little higher than on others. He's my quarterback 2, though. We're going to get to my quarterback 1 here in a second.
All right.
And
how's he ranked for you, Dan?
He's my 1. Yeah, he'd be, like I said,
and this is all pre-draft
with this class.
Too.
Yeah.
Although quarterbacks will not jumble up as much post-draft as running back and wide receiver will for us.
Yeah, I don't really do write down rankings. I have my tier started in my head. I because of fantasy wise, and it's so difficult to scout quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's tier.
And totally difficult to predict. He's easily my QB1 because no other quarterback in this class has this rushing floor.
And he's tier 2 for me from a perspective with Desmond Ritter and Sam Howell, going by tiers. So, but that's really kind of a misnomer as well. He's kind of like a tweener that I just didn't want to put in his own tier, so I just shoved him in tier 2. Because
he's my quarterback 1 right now, but again, I think that when you look at last year's class and you look at the 2023 class, fantasy-wise, I'm trying to get a quarterback from last year or next year. This year, I'm passing on quarterbacks. But if I had to take one, he'd be my number one in this year's class.
All right. So moving on to my number one in this year's class, he's number 2 quarterback off the board per the Face Off Sports Network's rookie ADP. That is 9th overall player. He is the number 1 quarterback off the board in CBS's 7-round mock draft. The Panthers at pick 6. And that is Kenny Pickett. And I really hope this is who you meant before the draft and you were talking about the next year lock, because it would be very on brand for me to have him as my quarterback 1 and to draw that comparison. So I'll go ahead and start, and then you guys can just rip it down. So when I was watching Kenny Pickett, the first thing that came to mind is 3 years ago, I probably would have been very down on Kenny Pickett, but I saw a lot of traits that I also saw in Justin Herbert. And remember, for those that have been around a while, Justin Herbert was my quarterback, 4 coming out of that class, I think?
Yeah.
Because there are some things that we didn't like there, but when I watched Kenny Pickett, just from a film perspective, he had a lot of qualities that I saw in a guy like Justin Herbert, which makes me think, well, maybe the floor isn't as low as we think it is. I think he's he is an older prospect. I think he's the most NFL-ready prospect, the most likely to start and have success in year 1. Does that mean he has the highest upside overall? No. I rank with floor taken into account a little bit more than I do upside, and that's always kind of just been a thing for me, for better or for worse. Malik Willis has the most upside in this class. Kenny Pickett, I think, has the highest floor in this class. He scored highest for me out of his Gate 1 rankings, which Gate 1 for me is your productivity for single season, for your career, as well as your measurements. Obviously, hand size is the thing that he missed. And then he was also my highest rated guy on film. So what did I like about Kenny Pickett? Thought he was athletic enough for today's NFL. He moved the pocket. He could pick up yards on occasional designed runs. He scrambled well. He's not Malik Willis with his legs. He's not. But he is closer to guys like Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, who's gonna give you some potential rush touchdown upside, who can scramble a bit, even though it's not a big part of their game. He's got plus zip on his short and intermediate balls, deep balls. There wasn't really anything that concerned me there. Takes care of the football, I thought. Was really good positioning it for his receivers to make a play. I saw a lot of back shoulder throws, a lot of pretty advanced throws and throw placement from him. They allowed his receiver to basically throwing the receiver open, allowed his receiver to make a play over a defensive back. The internal clock was evident. He handled pressure well. He stepped up in the pocket, could move the pocket, and he settles down nicely after a bad drive, too. That's the other thing I noticed watching Rhythm is that if he had a bad drive, which did happen, it didn't go into this downward spiral of a trend. He didn't have a lot of bad games, and that's because he can kind of put that behind him. So there's some advanced things that I saw from Kenny Pickett that made me believe he's the most NFL ready. Now, things I didn't like. The first and foremost, he wears 2 gloves. That's not a proven NFL success strategy. You throw out 2 gloves, you're going to be a journeyman. Looking at you, Teddy Bridgewater.
2 gloves?
You leave Teddy alone.
Teddy 2 gloves.
I'm just kidding. You can talk about Teddy.
He's a bit of a rhythm passer. He did force things on occasion. Does get some happy feet, especially under pressure. That's a thing that we don't like. We saw that with Josh Rosen, which is a reason that we didn't like him. So he can make the wrong decision. He just does it a lot less consistently than what Rosen did. When rolling left, he's going to throw. When rolling right, he's going to run. Don't know why that was a thing. The announcers called that out multiple games, though. Little predictable.
It is very weird when you throw on his film. That's very I did watch some of his film. It's
every time. I don't know if that was scheme.
He's a creature of habit. He's a creature of habit.
Yeah,
and that plays into your call about his rhythm. I think he's a creature of habit.
Yep, he does occasionally wait too long for routes to develop instead of taking the open man. That's something you can coach out of it, though. Overall, a lot of advanced stuff from Kenny Pickett that I liked. I think that this is all shit I've already said, but to wrap it up, there's a lot of things I liked. I saw some of Mac Jones' passing tendencies. Mac Jones is another one I thought got real happy feet last year under pressure. He had some of Mac Jones' passing tendencies with a little bit of Joe Burrow's athleticism. There was also some Herbert comparisons that I saw. I just think it's a safe floor and a likely quarterback one. He's likely to get a chance to start out of the gate and try to fail, right? Or try to not fail, basically. So a la Drew Lock.
Brad, I have to know, is this your Drew Lock?
Yeah, if you want to talk about the 2022 version of Drew Lock.
Yes! Oh, I'm so happy I got you on here. No, this is
perfect.
Go ahead, buddy. You fucking waxed it.
Is this not so on brand for me?
This guy played 5 years in college, right?
Yeah.
He was hitting like 12 touchdown passes every season, and then last year he hit 42. It's like, where the hell did this come from, right? Like, to me, it's like I feel like it's a product of the offense. You mentioned that he tends to scramble a lot. When I watch his film, I don't think he has good pocket awareness, and he likes to run, but he's not going to be able to run at the next level. He's not fast enough. So he's going to have to figure out how to stay in the pocket and manipulate the defense and throw the ball. But to me, this is a Drew Lock, Blaine Gabbert type pick. And, next time I'm on an episode, we're going to be hyping him. And, hey, this is going to be a thing.
Hey, let's not forget last year the amount of love Sam Darnold got. And I had to sit over here and eat crow. Yeah, as I keep telling you guys, why the fuck are we talking?
I was hyping Sam Darnold.
Yeah, and now he might replace. He is better than Sam Darnold. I have mixed feelings about Pickett because I get so bored with him because I think he's above average in everything. He's not bad at anything. He's not great at anything. I think his ceiling is Andy Dalton. I think people would be happy if he becomes Andy Dalton because I think if he lands in an offense with a good set of playmakers and a strong and a strong scheme to play around with and play in, I think you can find success. I agree with Brad. When you turn on his film, I think he has a tendency to want to leave the pocket too soon, right? I don't know if it's because once pressure gets to him early in a game, it sticks with them for the rest of the game. That's not something that I can pick up, and I'm not going to say, but I did pick up him wanting to leave pockets a little too soon, not step up in pockets, not make that type of throw. I do have my concerns about him as a fifth-year player, as a fourth-year senior. How much more can he actually develop as a player when he's had over 50 career starts? Is he Colt McCoy then? Well, he didn't win a bunch of games, but at least he's got so much built-up knowledge to it. I agree with Hopper. I think he is the most pro-ready. And if I'm banking on a quarterback to step up in week one to be starting, it'd be him. With all that experience, I think this class does get a little bit too shit on. There's a lot of depth to it. There's just no ceiling outside of maybe Willis. I think Pickett could step in and he could see himself as an Andy Dalton guy or turn into a journeyman plus that is going to be a guy we always talk about every year as a value in super flex leagues. He's not a QB1 ceiling. He just doesn't provide you the rushing floor.
I had to pull this up, but now I'm ready to attack it. Brad, challenge you on something. He's not fast enough to run in the NFL. Is Josh Allen fast enough to run in the NFL?
Well, he's proven that he's a good scrambler. I'll say that.
Josh Allen's 40 time was 4.75, a burst of 118.1. Is Dak Prescott fast enough to run in the NFL and scramble and pick up yardage?
Yep, you would say he was.
40 time of 4.79, burst score of 114.9. Carson Wentz. Throw the passing out. Can Carson Wentz run? Has he had
Yes, he can.
Elite productive seasons in the NFL, but productive. 4.77, 40 time, 112 burst. Ryan Tannehill. Most prolific scrambler in the league right now, other than Josh Allen, right? It's what he does with his legs. It's been his calling. It's been a thing for a bit. 4.70 40, no burst time recorded. So that group of people I just mentioned, Ryan Tannehill, Josh Allen, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, all profile very, very closely to Kenny Pickett's combine numbers as far as 40, and then composite burst score per player profiler. He's right in line with those guys as far as as far as his, the things that would predict scramble ability, his burst and his 40, which is more of long speed. He's right with those guys, which tells me that, he's athletic enough to do it, will he? We'll see. He's not going to be a 500-yard a season guy. 200 to 300, maybe a couple touchdowns, I think is probably the ceiling of his rushing ability as a scrambler. Patrick Mahomes is in there too, 480, 40 times. So, he's actually probably a tier above Patrick Mahomes as far as athleticism goes, 109.5 burst. See Mahomes in the 150 to 200 yards a year, a couple rushing touchdowns, whatever. Basically just throwing all that out there because those were your comparables athletically to Kenny Pickett. It's Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott are the four closest to him from an athletic perspective based on the combine numbers alone. Now, game film, I think that he is not Josh Allen. Obviously, he's smaller. I think Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz could be pretty close. Dak Prescott, I think, might have just had a bad combine. So I understand where you're coming from, but I just think that that's important for context.
And what we know is that QB athleticism is actually what we generally look at when we're trying to predict rushing ability to the next level. We've seen pretty non-athletic QBs find rushing, or quarterbacks who generate rushing volume in college that aren't athletic probably won't have that success at the next level, right? The linebackers and the defensive ends, edge rushers are just too fucking fast.
Also tells me a lot about their ability to avoid pressure, honestly. Especially with the burst score. They're just their ability to avoid pressure.
I think there might be a chance for Pickett to see a little bit of a bump in passing volume because of what Brett and I talked about, and that's his wanting to potentially leave the pocket too soon. If the game feels a little too fast from early on, and what we've generally seen is obviously younger quarterbacks have a higher tendency to run more. Why? Because they're learning to get up to speed with the pace of the game from college to the pros. So maybe Pickett gets in there. If he lands at Carolina, let's just say this, like he's starting week 1. I don't know how happy I'd be because of what I brought up. I think Carolina is going to clean house after this year. But if they make him top 6, he's not going to leave next year.
If he lands in
regardless
Carolina,
of the new team.
Is he an upgrade?
Dan,
yeah, what's up?
So I'll tell you why he won't land in Carolina. All right.
Yeah.
Because Sam Darnold's
and you called me out for hyping Sam Darnold last year, right?
It's because Sam Darnold's there.
Well, listen, Sam Darnold was drafted in listen.
I know.
Was
I'm
drafted
fucking with
in
you.
2018, right? 2018. That was like 5 years ago, right? He's in Carolina. He and Kenny Pickett have the same birthday. I think actually Sam Darnold's June 6th, Kenny Pickett's June 5th. Sam Darnold is 1 year older than Kenny Pickett. Exactly 1 year older, and he's already been in the NFL for 5 seasons. So why would you draft the exact same quarterback? Just let Sam Darnold develop. There's only 1 year difference.
Because no one knows who Pickett is right now. Damn it! He could be anything. He's the mystery box from Family Guy. He could be a boat. Who knows?
Hey, Hop, can you pull up Sam Darnold's 40 and his burst? Because I think he had a pretty decent 40 as well.
Yeah,
I think he did test pretty well.
I like that he's Emmett the Lego guy.
I know. It's my favorite thing in the world.
It's pretty funny.
He's pretty bad.
Way worse, actually. 98 burst and 4.85 40. So he's way down there.
7th percentile burst score.
And
Darnold led the league in quarterback scoring from a rushing standpoint through the first 5 weeks because of those touchdowns.
Yeah, he was on fire last year. We're looking good for a few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean,
we were looking good for a few weeks. I was with you on the Darnold train.
Man,
cheers to Sam Darnold. I mean,
cheers to Sam Darnold. I was thinking the same thing.
No, fuck that. Nope. Here's the Kenny Pickett replacing Sam Darnold, 1 year younger.
All right,
1 year younger.
I think that's enough.
When the contract's up, he's going to be the same age as Sam Darnold.
I think that's enough Kenny Pickett. Okay, I'm waiting on.
Well, so where's Kenny Pickett on your rankings, Dan? If he's number 2 for you.
He'd be number 3. He'd be number 3 for me.
So Willis is one.
And then Hopper's number 1 for him.
I think I'm going to put him at probably 4 for me.
Yeah. And it's pre-draft. He's number 1, and I mean, score-wise, he was in a tier of his own based on composite and everything like that. Like I said, just keep in mind Willis could have gone up a tier or down a tier. He was kind of in this weird tweener position from how I felt about it. So, I've got no problem with putting Malik Willis up in the same tier. I've got a problem with dropping Kenny Pickett a tier lower, because when we get down to these next couple guys, I'm not the biggest fan. Per Faceoff Sports Network, though, going 2 spots later, the 11th overall pick is Matt Corral. Matt Corral, per the CBS mock draft, goes to the Saints, number 49 overall, so mid-second round. I'll let you guys go ahead on Corral, and then I'm going to go ahead and just shit all over him because I am not a fan.
Yeah, he to me is he'd be my true lock. He's kind of like he's like Chad Kelly, except he's going to get
Chad
draft
Kelly
capital.
Good,
but they have this
got beat with a vacuum hose.
I mean, maybe he's got. There's been a lot of questions and concern about his leadership and work ethic and all that. So. And that's just per what the speculation is based on how he interviewed with teams during his combine and pro day. I mean, you turn on Corral's film, it's a lot of head scratching. He does make some big timey-wimey throws, but if the NFL is telling me that he's going to be a second round pick more than likely, even though he's being asked to come to a Detroit and be an in-person, watching room. Geno Smith was asked to go, and he went. He did not make it through, or he did not get drafted round 1. So it's not a dead-on conclusion that'll happen. But I've said it before multiple times. If a quarterback's not getting first-round draft capital and he doesn't have a high rushing floor, I don't fucking care about him. I don't care who he may be. Unless he falls into the third round of those super flex rookie drafts, I just there's no value to him in my mind. The bust rate of those guys are so high at this point, and then just a lack of true confidence in them as a building block. Teams draft guys that high because they're trying to flip them for value.
Now, when I look at Matt Corral, like, he's another old quarterback. He's coming in the NFL at 23 years old, same as Pickett, right? Some of these other quarterbacks are coming in at 21, so he's already an old quarterback. Now, I can see him going to Carolina. I can see him going to Seattle because I think he offers something that Kenny Pickett doesn't, and that's just pure athleticism, the arm strength. You mentioned Kenny Pickett had above average athleticism. When I watch Matt Corral on tape, like, he pops. Like, you when you watch him, it reminds you of, right, the NFL is a copycat league, right? You have Patrick Mahomes. Everyone's trying to get the next Patrick Mahomes. You look at Zach Wilson. He does the RPO. He can throw off balance, off platform. He's got a gun for an arm. Matt Corral is the same type of quarterback. He can get an RPO. He can throw off balance, off platform, has a gun. Does he have a lot of red flags? He does have a lot of red flags, but this entire class has a lot of red flags. If the NFL is trying to find the next Patrick Mahomes, I think when you look at this class, Matt Corral is that quarterback, and I could see a coach like Matt Rule trying to save his job by drafting a quarterback like Matt Corral and saying, hey, you need to give me a couple more years to develop him. Or, Pete Carroll saying Russell Wilson's gone. Matt Corral can do the play action pass as good as anybody. And Seattle's going to like to run the football. So I think he would be a good fit in Seattle as well. So he's my quarterback too, just because I can see that the NFL likes that upside that he could be possibly a Patrick Mahomes type player in the right offense.
He's my quarterback 7. When I say I hate Matt Corral,
he's even lower than me on him.
I hate Matt Corral. Look, I don't disagree with the reasons that you like him, Brad, at all. The two pros that I have written down for him, because there's only 3 in my whole list of notes here, is that he's a hell of a runner. He's not shifty, but he runs bigger than what he is. He shows vision and explosiveness that a running back like. He didn't run at the combine, so you don't really have comparison numbers there or anything. He's hurt. And, yeah, he's got a huge arm. He absolutely has a huge arm. You know who else had a huge arm? Tanner fucking Lee. He had no idea where the ball was going. He's
Matt
not
Corral's
Tanner.
a little
He's
bit
not
better
Tanner
than
Lee.
Tanner Lee.
He's not Tanner Lee. Yeah. I wasn't making a comparison. I was just saying that.
I know.
Arm talent not always the best thing.
Oh, fucking Tanner Lee. Why did you bring up Tanner Lee?
Because he's got to make a yearly appearance in this
show. Apparently.
Do you remember Tanner Lee, Brad? Probably not. He was a Nebraska quarterback that
he was like terrible.
Sprayed and prayed. He had a huge arm. He had no clue where the ball was going though. No,
he's like Matt Saracen from
he threw
Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, he threw with his eyes closed. But the things I didn't like about Matt Corral were the things that you need to be a successful NFL quarterback. It's not, and that's not to say you can't develop them, but at 23 years old, the likelihood of developing them is a lot less than what a younger guy like Malik Willis has. You can't wait on a guy like Matt Corral to develop, and that's why I like Kenny Pickett considerably more, is because he did develop those NFL traits while still in college that could make him successful as an NFL level at the age of 23. Matt Corral does not have the nuances that could make him successful at the age of 23. And do you wait 2 or 3 years on a guy that's already 23 years old to develop at an NFL level? Unless you're the Packers, no, you don't draft a guy to sit for 3 years with high draft capital. So unfortunately, a lot like Deshaun Kaiser, who had a lot of talent, was put into a bad situation. I think Matt Corral is going to come into the league, not get the chance to develop like what Mahomes did, and the bottom's just absolutely going to fall out of this. The awareness is underdeveloped. He's quick to run. He doesn't allow plays to develop. I'm pretty sure he forgets that he has an intermediate passing game available to him most of the time. It's either check downs or force the big play, even though you got guys open 10 yards downfield. It's one or the other. It's my deep route isn't there, I'm going to check it down. Jake Delhomme, anyone? He stares down receivers, which means he's not going through his reads. You can watch his eyes. Stare down, not there, okay, check it down. Accuracy is very hit or miss. And that's not to say that he's wild, because he's not. He's not Tanner Lee wild, but it's not Pickett who is putting the ball in places for his receivers to get open. Back shoulder throws are going inside for Matt Corral. Throws are sailing on him. It's that type of thing that I don't necessarily like, and playing to contact no bigger than he is also a concern to me. So, there's just, had he come out with the raw talent at 21, I probably feel a lot different than I do about him coming out with the raw talent at 23. I can't disagree that the raw talent is absolutely there, but it's just not developed enough as a 5-year starter for me to think he's going to find any sort of NFL success.
And I mean, when you look at the quarterback position, it's not as age dependent as your running backs, right? I mean, you look at Aaron Rodgers, who's in his mid-30s with one of the highest contracts in the NFL, right? Tom Brady's playing at 44, so I don't know if, when you compare a quarterback to Sam Darnold, right, who's been in the league for 5 years, but I think if you look in general at a quarterback, you might want an experienced quarterback or an older quarterback, because if you look at the last few seasons, these NFL teams are trying to win early on these rookie contracts. Joe Burrow made the Super Bowl in year 2 of his contract. Patrick Mahomes made the Super Bowl in year 2 of his contract. I think Jared Goff made it deep in the playoffs year 2 of his contract. I can't recall, year 2 or 3. But I think these franchises are going to try to win on these rookie quarterbacks. Maybe not year 1, but at least year 2. So if you take Matt Corral in the first round, you're going to bet that at least by year 2, he's going to give you a chance to make a run at the Super Bowl.
And that's what I'm not willing to bet on, because I don't think the nuances are developed enough to do that. I think that Matt Corral is a guy that you can't bet on to win on year 2. You almost have to Aaron Rodgers it, where he's behind a guy and then can bring it in to win. And the thing that scares me is that whoever drafts him is going to bet on him to win in year 1 or year 2. He's not going to be able to do it, and he's going to end up Josh Rosen and Drew Lock right on out to the backup position someplace. That's what scares me with Matt Corral.
Don't get me wrong. This entire class is probably Drew Lock.
Well,
right?
yes.
So none of these guys are going to be elite, in my opinion. But if you're talking about
except Kenny Pickett,
1 or 2, to me, he's probably number 2 in this class.
He makes, like, I'll say this, they're he'd throw on the film. He makes some highlight plays. It's like watching Josh Allen, except he's half his size and runs just as hard, and it's often hurt. And
except Josh Allen was good.
Well, Josh Allen was a terrible prospect that ended up being the greatest unicorn of all time.
He was my quarterback one that year.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes.
He was not your QB1.
Yes, he was.
Josh Allen was not your QB1 that year.
Yep.
It was Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield.
No, I didn't.
You were the highest on him. Okay, you were the highest on him.
I was the highest on him.
You were the highest on him. I was low on him like everybody else was. And I will always give props to how Josh Allen busted his ass and got to where he is. He absolutely
was tier 1
deserves that. He was tier 1 for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I made the mistake. I put fucking Mason Rudolph over Josh Allen. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And I was wrong. Everyone was fucking wrong.
I had Josh Rosen
Josh
over
Allen.
him, actually. He was tier 1, but I had Rosen over him. But that was because of what the internet was saying. This is 2018. It's before I learned to not listen to what the internet says, because most of the time they talked me out of shit that ended up being right.
Well, I mean, I don't think anybody was anywhere close than what Allen's development was. I'm not saying that Matt Corral is going to be that, but
I just knew I was higher than the rest of the
It's
show.
very frustrating to watch Corral because I think you'll have games where everything clicks. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like Baker to me. He's kind of like Baker. Or Sam Darnold or any of these other guys that obviously have the tools to get there, but can they get unlocked?
I will
Are
say
they going to land into a coaching staff that will help him unlock that? And that's so hard to predict right now.
Brad, I'll give you this one on Matt Corral. He is the guy that if he lands in the right spot, a coach that I think will use his strengths and mitigate his weaknesses in an offense that wants to work deep and use his big arm, in a team that has playmakers already established. Pittsburgh is exactly what comes to mind.
Let me ask you
hold on. Let me finish my thought. He will move up my rankings. I will give you that. If he lands in the right position to succeed early on, I will move him up after the draft. He's the one guy that could jump tiers for me after the draft.
Got to get first round DC.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Anyway,
if he goes round 2, he's off.
Go ahead. I wanted to complete the thought.
Sorry, I thought you did complete.
No, I did not. Steelers. It's okay.
Now, as a DJ Moore stan, I love DJ Moore. Can you imagine Matt Corral in that offense with DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, like slinging the rock around, like Robbie Anderson going deep? Like, I think that's a perfect fit for him.
I don't, because Matt Rule's a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a side conversation, but as far as a scheme fit in that offense, I think Matt Corral, the play action with McCaffrey, DJ Moore's versatility, his arm, like I just think that's like a perfect fit.
I mean, well, yeah, if they go with him at 6, yeah, that's the other reason too. Is then there's DC there, and that's why we tend to put very little stock into how we rank these guys pre-draft, is because if he goes 6 to the Panthers, you've got the DC and he landed in a spot. Yeah, he'll jump up for me. He's going to jump up into tier 2 for me at that point.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Rule's got to figure something out. He passed on Justin Fields. I think he's going to be like, hey, I need to take a quarterback. Maybe I'll extend my career here in Carolina for a few more years to develop Matt Corral.
They have no day 2 picks, too. They have a first-round pick, and then they have no day 2. Yep. Which is a big thing to keep in mind, because this is one of the most important picks.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm most concerned about Carolina cleaning house. I don't think Matt Rule survives this year. Yeah, even in the weak division, in the weak conference, I don't think he survives this year.
I agree. I think some of these general managers and coaches are going to try to latch onto these quarterbacks and try to explain to the owner, you need to give me 2 more years to develop this quarterback and then see what I can do.
Yep. Okay, moving on. Sam Howell is the next quarterback off the board. 15, so 2 spots behind Matt Corral. That's per Faceoff Sports Network's Super Flex dealio there. And CBS 7-round mock draft has Sam Howell at number 43 overall to the Falcons.
I love how they both have him a second round. I love how they both have him and Corral second round. Because he's my 4. I'm not like he looked pretty good coming out as a freshman, right? When I'm watching film and I'm scouting these guys, in college, I mean, he had one of the best freshman QBRs we've seen in a long time, and things seemed to click. And obviously, the talent that he had his first 2 seasons as a starter were obviously shown in that. And obviously, this year, when you lose that amount of talent to the NFL, and there's something to really back that up, and a poor offensive line, you get what Sam Howell did. We don't have his athletic numbers, unfortunately. I mean, we have his high school numbers, and they're pretty underwhelming. I don't know how much more that's improved. I don't think Howell's going to be the athletic enough at the next level to have that rushing floor to kind of save him in some of these days. I know he gets a lot of comps to a guy like Baker because of the inconsistencies. Because Howell on film, when you turn it on, it can be night and day sometimes for him. He's someone that I'm really watching to see if he lands into a clean spot, because I think Howell has a bit of the upside that can be unlocked. He just needs to get up there and be coached up. But again, if we're looking at day 2 DC for him, I'm out, and it's just how it goes.
He's the most likely to end up as a long-term NFL backup if we're giving out superlatives for me, because that's what the skill sets points to. He's accurate enough in the intermediate game. He can scramble a bit when the opportunity is there. The internal clock is good enough. He gets through his reads fine, but he doesn't have the raw talent of even a Matt Corral. He doesn't extend plays. He's not twitchy, athletic, or explosive. No top speed. I agree with you. He may not be accurate enough to maintain that rushing productivity there. And I thought he struggled with the deep ball a lot. The one thing that got him cool points for me is that he punted in a game that I watched. So, me liking kickers.
You do love your punters.
I love punters.
You do.
He is my quarterback 4, and that's just because I think the floor is that he could end up a journeyman, right? And again, if I'm going to invest some draft capital in anybody from this class, I either want the huge upside of a guy like Malik Willis, or the high floor of a guy like Kenny Pickett, or I guess, we'll get to Ritter in a minute. I think he's got much higher upside than Sam Howell, who's the other guy I have ahead of him. I do think that there's some seasons where Sam Howell as a QB2 and Superflex might have value. He could end up at a journeyman role. We've seen Taylor Heineke have some value, in some guys like this. But I don't know that he's ever a long-term starter or a franchise quarterback or sniffs anywhere near elite. And that's pretty much how I feel about Sam Howell. I think that the floor is probably going to be there with very limited upside. And, Sam Howell's not a guy I get excited about.
You can also see him out of the league in 3 years.
He's
a bit erratic too. I mean, from the dip in efficiency, I get it. The talent that was lost was huge from year 2 to year 3 for him. But he's going to face even worse competition. He's going to face even tougher competition. He should have better playmakers, but I mean, every team should be an upgrade in that standpoint. And I just don't think Howell has the capabilities to ever reach highly enough, and I think he'll be eventually bounced after his first contract.
You tell me any of these guys other than Pickett and Willis are out of the league in 3 or 4 years, and I wouldn't argue with you. So,
yeah. I mean, I think that this group of quarterbacks, Howell right now, I think he's wide receiver or quarterback 5 for me. But if you put all these quarterbacks in a group and said one of these is going to become the best quarterback of the class, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Howell. When I watch him, he reminds me of a poor man's Baker Mayfield. He reminds me of a Derek Carr. He's got that toughness, to carry his team on his back. I mean, he lost, like you said, Dan, he lost his receivers. He lost his running backs. So what did he do? He turned into a running back himself to try to win games for North Carolina. I mean, he's the type of quarterback that's going to play through injury, do what it takes to win games. And I don't have him high in this class, but I wouldn't be surprised if when it's all said and done in 3 years, we look back and say how turned out to be the best of this group, because I don't think this group's very exciting at all to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be shocking. And that's what the NFL's telling us. That's what mocks are telling us. That's what a lot of people whose opinion I trust will tell me. It's all the same. It's a lot of guys that like Howell are the Devy guys that have been following his career since he stepped on as a redshirt freshman. And and he was able to have a successful first year. It was him and Keaton Slovis were the two freshmen that people were talking about back in 2019, and now here we are. And Howell was barely a first-round pick, and a poor man's Baker who's going to win over his locker room, but that talent level, that elevation of play will never come to fruition. Hopper's right. He's a journeyman quarterback. He works on his smarts, and he can become a very valuable backup for years to come. Like, he could be a Fitzpatrick at some point.
You know what? Derek Carr is his best case scenario. I think you nailed the ceiling on him, though, Brad. Derek Carr, I think, would be the best case scenario for Sam Howell.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that. Hey, he could go to Carolina, stay home.
Everybody,
2 years younger than Sam.
Somebody's going to Carolina. Somebody will be.
Somebody will be. And it probably not. He's projected at the end of the first, at least per CBS mock draft. 17th quarterback off the board. I think that is, 17th pick. 4th quarterback off the board, which I think is way too low. Desmond Ritter. So he's mocked to the Lions at 32 by CBS. And Brad, I want you to kick this one off because Dan and I know, feel damn near the same about Desmond Ritter. So I'm curious where you're at.
So I'm not a big fan of Desmond Ritter. To me, Desmond Ritter's just a guy, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he lost 2 games in his college career, one against Georgia in the Peach Bowl and then one against Alabama. When he played good competition, he didn't show up, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know if the game plan was ideal against Alabama this past year, but he's got athletic ability. He's got a lot of work to do, in my opinion. And I think he is a Christian Ponder type player, maybe a little more athletic than Christian Ponder.
Oof.
I don't see that. I don't see a high ceiling for Desmond Ritter. I think he's just a guy, and I have no interest in adding him to my fantasy team. So hopefully you guys are the same, but you probably aren't because it's very quiet.
No, we are not the same. And I will say this: with Georgia and Alabama, if you struggle against Georgia and Alabama, and you're playing for Cincinnati, just given the talent level differences across the board, that's a forgivable offense to me. And look, I would forgive Malik Willis the same way if he had to go up against Georgia or Alabama. I mean, Cincinnati, the fact that Cincinnati was in a position to play Georgia or Alabama at that level, I think is a testament to Desmond Ritter. Watching him, though, there are some holes, like there are with everybody in this class, but I like the upside, and I really like the athleticism. I thought the headspace was there. He often makes the right read. The internal clock was good. Good sense for pressure. Long stride runner. There was some Josh Allen to his athleticism. He could chunk yards off. A little slow to get up and go, a lot like Allen is. But he could really chunk off yards once he gets up and goes. He has the ability to make throws at all levels. And he squared up nicely, even went on the run, and changed his arm angles pretty nicely as well, which is very important for a quarterback, especially in today's NFL with moving pockets, to be able to, on the fly, square up, change your arm angles. Kind of a little bit of Matthew Stafford to the way that he was able to do that with the arm angles and squaring up and really throwing from any position. Patrick Mahomes is the other guy that comes to mind with the ability to do that, even though I don't think Ritter quite has the arm strength of either of those guys. I'm not comparing him to those players. I am comparing that particular ability to those players. Accuracy was hit or miss. He was very rhythm. He has the strength to make throws at all level, but, not a lot of zip there, and I'm not sure if that's something that can be fixed just through coaching and maybe changing the mechanics a little bit. He has a lot of length to him, so I feel like he should be able to get a little bit more zip on his throws than what he does. So, arm strength, it's not lacking in the sense of, is he going to underthrow somebody on a deep ball? No, I don't think so. But is he going to be able to fit a ball into tight windows at the intermediate level because he can, really turn up the fastball? I don't necessarily see that there either. And just doesn't really have a lot of quick twitch to him. He has some polishing he needs, but a lot of it seems to be coachable for me. He has the mental aspect of the game, which I think is the harder part to get. The upside could be capped. I think the floor is there, though, especially at the rushing ability. He's my quarterback 3.
So he's my 2, and it's, again, rushing ability. He's one of the more, he was, at least from a testing from the combine standpoint, he was the most athletic. We know that Malik Willis is the most athletic in this class. Just turn on his film. Thor Nystrom, when he put out his article, he had the confirmed 4.37 40 time at Auburn. So we know he's not on Willis's level in terms of athleticism and size, but Ritter could fit in as that potential rushing yards upside in a very potential forgettable QB class. That's the biggest reason why I have interest in him. I think he's going to go day one. I think you're going to get a team that's going to trade up into the back end of the first, get that 5th year, and try to work with him. He's a 4-year starter. Again, like Pickett, how much more development does he actually have? At least Ritter's got athleticism to him that could kind of help early on if there's any struggles. I just, from a passing standpoint, I don't think he's particularly there. He doesn't have great percentile in his passing numbers in terms of the finishes. I think he could be, like, his best comparable on Player Profiler is Alex Smith, and I think that's a great fit for him. You put him on an offense like Pittsburgh, a lot of weapons. Just let the man play game manager. Let him be Garoppolo. Let him be a guy that can lead the game, hopefully make less turnover-worthy decisions like he had in college because he has some turnover issues, and just let him manage the game while also providing that athleticism where he's not going to be a top 12 QB for fantasy probably any year, maybe one if we're lucky, 2 if he sticks. Otherwise, he's going to be a nice super flex guy. He'll provide you a slight boost, and if he's on an offense that provides, some decent playmakers for him, and just let him manage that. He's not a take over the game. He's not, I don't think he's a Dak level guy where he could come in as a smaller school guy that takes off. He's just, if it's fit for him, it'll work, to an extent. Otherwise, it'll probably crumble, and he'll be a backup on his 3rd team in his 5th year.
So athletic wise, I want to give some of the same comparisons like I did for Kenny Pickett, just to drive this point home. He's over a 1/10 of a second faster in his 40 time than Deshaun Watson. He's half a 1/10 of a second, which is which is almost negligible, but he's right in the same ballpark as guys like Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, Kyler Murray. As far as his burst score goes, the burst score, he's with Robert Griffin in that company, Tyrod Taylor, Marcus Mariota. He's a little bit better than Russell Wilson, right there with Cam Newton. So athleticism-wise, he doesn't have the body, but athleticism-wise, it's probably closest to Cam Newton from a pure athletic standpoint. Not the arm talent, not the zip, not the body, but as far as burst and speed, he's right there with Cam.
Now, Hop, you mentioned that playing for Cincinnati, you should be lucky, in games against Georgia and Alabama. But when you play the biggest games of the season, the best players show up for these games. They're through. And again, you say he's quarterback 2 in this class, which could probably be quarterback 6 in another class.
Or fantasy.
No, I didn't.
Fantasy.
I said Dan said quarterback 2. I said quarterback 3. If you're gonna address me, quarterback 3.
God damn it, get it right.
So, I don't expect Ritter to be anything special, even as a high quarterback in this class. But there's been quarterbacks through the years that have just put teams on the back. You talk about Michael Vick and Vince Young and Justin Herbert. These quarterbacks put teams on their back. When Ritter played against the best competition, he looked like he wasn't even prepared to go against that level of competition. And I didn't see him raise his game and lift his teammates up and say, you know what, I got this. I'm going to make plays. He just doesn't look like he is an elite level player. And I think you need to be an elite level player to be an NFL starter. To me, he's like a Joey Harrington type player, right?
God.
He might have some good games, but he's not, in my opinion, he's not going to be an NFL starter. I think he might be a good NFL backup because of his rushing ability. but I think he needs a lot of work.
He needs a lot of work. But you just threw out a bunch of names for guys that put teams on their back. You used Vince Young, who played in the Big 12. You used Justin Herbert, who played in the Pac-12. Cincinnati's from the freaking American Athletic Conference.
AC, baby.
This isn't the Pac-12. This isn't a Power 5 school. This isn't, I get what you're saying as far as other guys have put teams on their back. To get a school from the American Athletic Conference to the college football playoffs twice? How good?
I mean, we could go back to quarterbacks like Matt Grothe, who took USF to number 2 overall in the nation. Like, to me, that's a quarterback. I mean, he didn't pan out in the NFL because he was too small.
Right.
Johnny Manziel. I mean, yes, Johnny Manziel. That's a Big 12 team, but like, I don't see Ritter making the players around him better. It's almost like I'll take what I can get.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that.
Spectacular plays. And you want to see that at the college level, even against Alabama, even against Georgia. You want to see him make those plays if you think he's going to be an NFL starter or NFL contributor. I just don't see it, in my opinion.
And that's fair. I mean, like, no, I would I'm not shocked if Ritter doesn't hit. Again,
it's his class.
I want the athletic. Yeah. It's the class, and he has a extremely strong athletic profile. I mean, you're looking at 97th percentile 40 to 94th percentile burst score. I mean, again, I don't need him to be a prolific passer. I need him to be Garoppolo at best, but give me some of them Alex Smith rushing yards during his heyday, and we're fine. I mean, Alex Smith, that will last. Like I said, he can land into an abysmal spot and no one would fucking care about him. He goes to a team like Pittsburgh, maybe, right? Everyone likes their landing spot for one of these quarterbacks because they have the playmakers in place and a sustainable coaching staff that could help them, develop, and it's not going to change within a year or two. Oh, man. A lot of time on this class.
A lot of time on this class.
A lot of time on this QB.
That's okay, because we're going to try to wrap it up because I think we've gotten through.
My quarterback 3 we still haven't even talked about.
Oh, don't tell me we're talking about Carson Strong.
That's right.
Oh, man.
Okay, we can talk about Carson Strong.
Ding Don.
Okay,
I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Brad.
We got a couple guys to talk about. Carson Strong would have been next anyway, based on the way that we're doing this. He's average pick 27.3 in the 7-round mock draft. He is going
round 3.
No, is he going round 3? Hold on.
I'm just guessing.
He's going round.
He interviewed poorly.
He's going to round 4 to the Commanders.
He's
better than Heineke. I'll say that.
I was going to say the best landing spot for Carson Strong is a spot where there isn't an established quarterback.
The best landing spot for Carson Strong is the XFL.
That's where I think he's going to go. Look, in this class, right? I mean, this quarterback class is so bad. Like, if any quarterback has all the intangibles, like, again, right? Davis Mills last year went like 3rd round. I don't remember 4th round, whatever.
Yeah,
it was.
3rd round.
So Carson Strong is a similar prospect, in my opinion. The one thing about Carson Strong, if you watch his film, you do not see this a lot in college quarterbacks. He has a complete control of his offense. When he gets the line of scrimmage, he calls audibles. He looks like an NFL quarterback at the college level. Most college quarterbacks are looking at the sidelines and they're holding up the pictures and they're like, all right, this is the play. Carson Strong will go and he's like, audible. And he will put his players in great positions. We won't even talk about his attributes, his arm strength, and the way
you named the only one right there. There's nothing else to say. Arm strength. That's the only attribute he has.
Yeah, so in my opinion, Carson Strong, he needs a year to understand the offense that he's going to really bring out his best strengths. So if he goes to a team like the Commanders and he can learn the offense behind Carson Wentz, I think year 2 he could easily become the starter of that franchise. And then it's going to come down to the medicals, right? He had the injury in high school that really lasted years, his knee. He said that it's fine. We won't really know until we see where he's drafted because these teams get his medical and they'll tell him how bad that knee is. But again, Davis Mills, they're saying he's a statue. He can't run. That's fine. When I watch Carson Strong,
he's a statue that can't run. He's Mike White.
Mike White.
Don't get me wrong. Like, he reminds me of like a Drew Bledsoe type quarterback. Like, he can maneuver in the pocket, and then he can use his arm to just find the ball in the tight windows. He understands his offense. Like, if you're going to put him against these quarterbacks like Desmond Ritter and Kenny Pickett, like, to me, he could have a much higher ceiling than those quarterbacks in the right situation. It's going to take him a year probably to get familiar with the offense.
Can I give you, if you're not on YouTube, you should be for this. I'm going to give you a visual representation of what it's going to look like.
Are you going to take that shirt off again?
No, I'm going to give you a visual representation.
We're trying not to lose more fans.
Of what this is going to look like if Carson Strong goes to the Commanders. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah.
Hold on, I got to take my headset off for this. I don't want to get caught up by anything. Over and over and over and over.
He is a god.
Because Carson Strong cannot move. And
he's got NFL, Mac Jones level of athleticism.
Right. And in today's NFL, it doesn't play. He has an arm. Fine. I can't argue with the arm strength. But other than that, I didn't see anything else. It was a redeeming quality. The decision-making wasn't great. Great. He called plays at the line. Congratulations. You're the next Kellen Moore.
He's got the most punchable face.
I will draft you in my offensive coordinator league. I mean,
have you seen his player profiler pick?
No.
He's got the most punchable face. He is Mason Rudolph. Except small school. Like, I'm not sure if he's going to hit on my girlfriend in front of me, or I'm going to go play D&D with him later. But he's got a very punchable face. We know what the correlation to that looks like. Big Ben's his ceiling, and Mason Rudolph's his floor.
No sense for pressure. No ability to extend plays.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, none of these quarterbacks I've drafted in my fantasy league, like, this is going to be my starter.
I don't want, yeah. No, I get you.
But in this class, if you're going to bet on somebody like, to me, I was high on Jarrett Stidham as well. So you might not want to take my advice, but he has those intangibles, I think, to be an NFL starter. But he's just going to need a year probably to understand the offense. And I think he can go out there and really direct the offense. And I think he's got the intangibles. I think he has pocket awareness. He has arm strength. And he can put his players in position to be successful. So, we'll see how the medicals are. If his legs are all right, and he goes
needs
in
legs
the second
to play.
Or third round.
He does need legs to play.
I'll take a chance on him in round 3 or 4 of our rookie drafts.
That's why Jason Street lost his. That's why Jason Street lost his quarterback job. He didn't have legs to play.
More Friday night rights. I love it. All the references.
More Friday night. Hey, I rated 9 quarterbacks. Carson Strong is in a tier of his own. Guess where he rated?
9.
Oh. I saw no.
Brad's so sad right now.
And not just 9. He rated 9 by a lot.
I think because he was getting some first round buys really early on in the offseason, and then I think when the interviews came out, and I guess he had he didn't know certain basic plays or something came out where he just looked like dumber than a box of rocks. He tanked.
Tied with Malik Willis for my worst gate 1 percentage based on college productivity, and he had the worst film score for me.
Let's talk about one of your favorite guys. I don't want to spend any more time on Carson Strong.
One of my favorite guys. Who do you want to talk about?
I mean, I have no more other quarterbacks to talk about.
I have 2 that are my tier 3, and we can talk about them together to save time.
Okay. Let's do that.
I think Bailey Zappi and Dustin Crum are both very, very similar. I'll start out with Zappi. I'm just going to run through this real quick. I thought the eye discipline, the read progression, and just kind of the overall ability. He appeared to be very, very smart. Solid timing and zip on the intermediate throws. Deep balls were well placed. The mechanics looked very solid to me based on 5 years of doing this. Good hip rotation into his throws. Really drove the football. Gave him some good zip. Good pocket awareness. He loves football. He played in a bowl game instead of opting out. So, That's something I want to make sure I call out. You got all these players that opted out of bowl games for their health.
That's because that's going to be his last game ever.
He doesn't want to protect himself. He's trying to get higher in this draft.
He's athletic enough to scramble, and he plays with high confidence. He's not afraid to make throws. He fits the balls into some tight windows, and his placement I thought was exceptional. Some of the negatives I saw, throws occasionally sail, happens to a lot of young players. Sometimes does hold out too long for a deep play. Again, happens to a lot of players. Didn't have a ton of burst. He might be athletic enough, but he's not going to give you a ton of rushing floor. Andy is a small school guy. If you were to tell me that this would be the second or third best quarterback in this draft, I would not be surprised. He could also be nothing, right? He doesn't have the elite intangibles like Matt Corral or even Carson Strong's arm strength. But next to Kenny Pickett, I think he might be one of the most well-rounded players in this draft. So if you guys don't have thoughts, that's fine. I'm just kind of riffing on this one. But
I have one thought.
We'll get there. Let me finish. He's the 7th quarterback off the board. Off the drawer in face-off. And he's currently projected in the 4th round of the Packers. Why are the Packers drafting a quarterback in this?
Because he's still better. Because he's better than Jordan Love. All right. Worst draft. That is the worst draft pick.
We'll pause for Zappy, and then I want to get to Crum, and then we'll hit a review and do running backs.
Brad, what are your thoughts? I have no. There's been buzz around Zappy, obviously hyper productive at Western Kentucky, but I don't have a whole lot of. He may be this year's Davis Mills.
I mean, before I get into him, how's that Russell's pick?
We'll get there. That's the part that happens in between quarterbacks.
I just want to know so bad.
Talk about where we're drinking. I just said that. I will tell you this: at 110%, I just said Bailey Zappi was coming out of a drawer. So you tell me.
This is gonna running back should be great. We're gonna be too tuned up. This is gonna be awesome.
The only thoughts that I have on Bailey Zappi and Dustin Crum are that in 2 years they'll be in the USFL.
The XFL. I want them
Carson
playing
Strong with XFL.
I want them playing for my St. Louis Battlehawks. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, they're not NFL level talent in my opinion.
Dustin Crum, real quick, also, and these are guys I don't expect to be higher than backups, right? I mean, if they stick, it's going to be his backups, and maybe you get a Gardner Minshew type season who went 6th round, who was a guy that I would actually like.
You loved him here.
I love
You're
Gardner
big fans of Minshew.
We love Minshew.
At least I still love Minshew, man. Come on.
Coming out. So, I mean, the hope for these guys is that you're picking up the next Gardner Minshew, right? That's basically where I'm at with it, where you get maybe a season of productivity, and then he's an elite backup. You're praying gets another shot somewhere. So Dustin Crum's the other guy I want to talk about. He's another guy that has a zip on his throws, but he is the more athletic of the two. Had some big chunks, long, powerful stride, good awareness. I'm Mike Tyson now. There was a lot of film available on him. He's kind of a one-read and run guy. Downfield accuracy wasn't there. It's really hard to form out a concrete opinion, but he's athletic. He did have a big arm with decent zip. Slight hitch in his delivery, so there's some small concerns there as far as, we've seen guys with mechanical problems not necessarily producing the NFL. But outside of those first guys we talked about who people are going to be all over the board on, I think Crum and Zappi are the other two names to know in this draft and just keep an eye on. They rated very similar film-wise for me. Exactly the same as far as their college productivity goes as well. So Dustin Crum, by the way, he is not being drafted in the face-off mocks. No, he's the 14th quarterback off the board out of 15 there. And I'm pretty sure, he's projected to go undrafted. So maybe just forget I said anything about Crum. But Bailey Zappi, I think, he is a guy that, look, my reputation on quarterbacks is at stake here, is in somebody might actually hit that I like. So,
I mean, I think everyone struggles to predict quarterbacks.
Yep.
I've been very vocal about how terrible I am at quarterbacks. So,
all right,
take whatever I say and do the opposite. You're probably just going to be just as bad.
I'm going to hit some reviews, and then you're going to pick another bourbon for me for running backs, Brad. We're going to go to something different. As long as
I know the 3 times that I've been on here, we've hyped Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater. Like, quarterback track record is not good for me here.
No, it's not.
We'll blame the bourbon, Brad. All right.
There's a Blake Bortles bobblehead behind me somewhere. And other guys I've hyped are like Brian Hoyer, Sam Darnold, and Drew Lock. So,
we have the infamous 45-minute Brian Hoyer episode. That was third episode in a third night of recording.
We spent 45 minutes on Brian Hoyer. Dan came over an hour beforehand to drink with me, and I convinced him Brian Hoyer was going to be good starting for San Francisco.
And that was year 1.
45 minutes trying to convince Nick of the same.
Nick wanted our old third guy wanted to kill us. He was like, why the fuck are we spending this much time on him?
Go ahead, somebody.
I'll start so you guys can talk about your Russells. So again, I'm drinking Distill Brewing in collaboration with Run House out of Arizona. This is Rocky Road. This is a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout with roasted almonds, cocoa nibs, vanilla. This is to resemble the Rocky Road ice cream. This is a heavily sweet. Roasted almonds are going to help with that. Very, very sweet. Overly pastry. It's good. It's just not my cup of tea when it comes to bourbon barrel age. I generally like them to be less adjunct and just more taking part of the malt and the shit you get from the barrel. But still very good in terms of doing what it's supposed to do. And that's what I'll say, because I hate to give actual biased reviews on the brewery that I work for. So if anyone's listening, it's the best beer ever.
Nice.
I'll go ahead.
My Russell's here. This, like I mentioned earlier, this is a 10-year-old, and I get a lot of oak in this thing. This is like a cherry oak. I've been sipping on this thing the whole episode. It's like if they made a cherry candy that had that little oak hints in it, this is exactly what it would taste like. It might be a little too old. Most of these Russells are like 8-9 years, so I'm not quite sure if this 10 years is just a little too old in the barrel, but it's a little oaky, but it's got the cherry bomb, so I love that. And I'm ready to move on to something for the second half.
All right, yeah, I'm going to move on after this as well, but I will, it's funny that's how you put it. So this bottle of Russell's and I have a long history together, right? I said it's the 5th bottle of bourbon that I ever bought when I started my collection, and it's still here, and the reason it's still here is because it was terrible. It's a 10-year-old, like I think most of their single barrels are, at least back in the day, were in that range. They might have had to start to drop the age off a little bit now. But when I first drank it, it tasted like licking the inside of an ashtray. Dan, I think you might have actually had this one before, too.
Okay.
Like, it tasted like licking the inside of an ashtray. So when you had me pour it today, I was a little bit apprehensive. But then I smelled it, and I immediately got something I normally only get off of Buffalo Trace products in the nose, which is that wave of, like you mentioned, cherry. And just a very, very, like, fruit cocktail type of note. Like the little fruit cocktail cups that you get.
And you get the one
as
cherry.
Kids, and they come with, like, pears and one cherry and peaches. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's something I normally only get off of Buffalo Trace, but I really got it off the nose on this one. And then whatever that ashtray note was really calmed down. I get a lot of tobacco, a lot of oak out of this, a lot of charred oak, which I think is what was giving it the ashtray note beforehand, which is kind of what I think you're getting when you say it's aged a little bit too much, is that there's a lot of charred oak that comes out of this. I think that's just a signature of Russell's in general. It's got good depth to it. There's a nice kind of like baking spice, cinnamony, like warm finish here. But it got a lot more depth and a lot more balance out of it as it's sat pretty much untouched for the last year and a half or so. I think it's how long it's been since I revisited this bottle.
Oh, nice.
So.
Nice. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. What am I drinking next?
All right, so I see that yellow tube on the top.
That's
small batch
P.H. Taylor.
That is a barrel proof.
Oh shit, I don't have that. I have the small batch of the single barrels.
You have barrel proof?
Yeah,
of EH?
Yeah, Dickie gave it to me.
Fuck.
Damn.
Oh, that's right. He let you get it. Well,
right, how about?
I know when we're having draft night.
Yeah.
Hop, why don't you pick, and then I'll see if I have something that can match that.
You know what? I got one for you. I'm gonna do a fresh crack with you, Brad, because I like you.
Nice.
Aw.
You got that McKenna sitting behind you, and McKenna's.
I got McKenna.
Yeah, McKenna 10 years a bottle that I know there's a lot of variants.
Damn it.
Some of them are really good, and some of them are really terrible. I got one sitting up there that I picked up at Walmart of all places.
Oh, it's Snickers. Damn it! I thought I had one.
This one's kind of terrible.
Is it? You want to do Knob Creek instead? I've got a Knob Creek 12 picked by Freddie No.
And it's not Creek 12. This is just a shelfer, but it's good.
You want to do Knob Creeks?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'll crack open my Freddie No pick with you.
Oh, wow. I need a sample of that.
Guys, I'm still gonna keep drinking my Rocky Road. Just want to let you guys know.
Just drink that almond, those pecans, and
the roasted almonds, and extra chocolate and vanilla. Yeah, don't worry. You know, I got bourbon too. God, just whatever.
So when Dan said that I rubbed elbows with a lot of people in bourbon, Freddie No is one of those people. By the way, Brad, if you're not busy in October, my group does a little thing here called the St. Louis Bourbon Festival, and we're bringing a bunch of bourbon personalities in. We are actually going to do some features for podcasters and stuff as well. If you feel like making a trip up to St. Louis for, I don't know, a lot of bourbon samples and charity.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to.
I'll get you dates and info and everything, and I'll even see if we can get you in as a, potentially as a podcaster or something to maybe get to pull some people in. So
I just launched the my Bourbon Lounge YouTube where I do bourbon reviews. So by October, maybe I'll be an official podcaster.
So we're gonna have we're trying to get Bernie Lubbers, Freddie Johnson from Buffalo Trace, and if you've ever watched the documentary Neat, I think is confirmed. I think there's a chance Freddie No is going to be there, which is what made me come up with this. I'll have to look at the full list of people, but let me see what I can do. By the way, one thing about Knob Creek that I want to call out right away, I hate their wax. This is the old wax, I think. I think they've improved it since then, but it just fragments and goes... hold it up so you can see my hand. I got to go left-handed for this, though, because my camera. It just kind of fragments all over the place, unlike Maker's Mark, where most of it stays on the bottle. It just kind of flew off everywhere.
Yeah. Knob has terrible wax.
Welcome to Beerfield.
So you have a Knob Creek Freddie No pick?
Yep. This is a Knob Creek pick that's done by Freddie No and my buddy Narav down at A1 Liquors in Effingham. So shout out to those guys in the Rusty Water Society, another big bourbon group in the area. This is a 9-year-old pick, checking it at 120 proof.
Man. My 12-year-old's 100 proof, so you got me by quite a bit.
Yeah, but you got a 12, so you got me on a couple of years because I've only got a 9 here.
Oh,
so
9-year, okay.
I got higher proof, you got more age. Yeah, I really hate Knob Creek's wax. All right, let's go to running backs because I think wax reviews is probably not what most people are tuning in for.
I mean, that's how we keep them reeled in.
Wax reviews.
I
got some. Well, it is a wax is a big Tater thing now, so I can go ahead and pull out the Maker's wax if we want to do some wax comparisons. I got some Maker's back there. Maker's has the best wax though, I think. They've been.
I saw a slam dunk Maker's today. I almost bought it. It was like the whole bottle was covered in wax.
I've got about every Maker's wood finish pick back there on my shelf. I think what you see up top there is I think that's the FAE 02. I've got an SE4 PR5. I've got a RC6 somewhere. I've got FAE.
I want to try that RC6. Is that good?
It's pretty freaking incredible. So
right now, I'm building a whiskey cigar room as part of the lounge. You guys were down here. I don't know if I showed you the back room. When I get that done, I need you guys to come down for the weekend. I need you to pack 10, 15 bottles. And then we'll pop a bunch of bottles here. We'll just try a bunch of shit.
Oh,
that's
yes.
Not at all a problem for me, buddy.
I would love to do a full-on.
I got my buddy. I'll have him bring some heavy hitters. We'll just drink in the whiskey lounge.
Oh, yeah. Can certainly do that. All right. Running backs. First running back off the board is obviously Breece Hall.
As it should be.
It is. Yeah, I think it should be. I mean, are you of a differing opinion, Brad, or are you on the Breece Hall train?
No, it's Breece Hall and then everybody else in this draft for me.
Thank you.
That's exactly where I.
Thank you.
And so we'll keep this very, very sweet. Athletically, he tested fantastic, very productive. Showed a much more rounded skill set, particularly in the receiving game, than what Kenneth Walker did. And that right there is a big difference maker between the two.
Yeah, for me. Yeah, for me, Breece Hall has everything that you want. I mean, I don't think he's in the Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley level. But in this class, I mean, he's got excellent vision. He's got excellent hands. He's got speed. I mean, he can change gears and really can demonstrate that speed. The only question I have is if he's going to be scheme dependent, if he's going to need a certain scheme to be successful. I'm not quite sure, but I think that his athletic ability and his receiving ability is going to make him a good fantasy back. But I don't think he's a slam dunk. I think Saquon was a slam dunk. I think Jonathan Taylor was a slam dunk. Even though Breece Hall tested athletically as a freak, I'm just not convinced he's a slam dunk. But in this class, where there's not very many quarterbacks, the receivers I'm really kind of skeptical about. He's the shining star. I think it's him, and then you decide who you want after that in this class.
So yeah, I do think Breece Hall can be. I mean, from a complete prospect standpoint, he is in the same
tier as Taylor. Yeah,
in the same tier as Taylor. You know, Barkley. I mean, we may never see a Barkley again from top 5 DC because teams are smarter now. Hopefully. And just what he was able to put from a production standpoint, from his athletic build, his size. Breece isn't obviously a guaranteed, but he's about. I mean, he's about as perfect from what we want from a prospect, in where how running backs are being valued in today's NFL. So he should be a slam dunk. I think. I don't think there's a landing spot outside of some of the higher end running backs that are there that he's going to struggle to find or to reach that production with. So, and it's simple 101. I think he's a 101 in both formats. I would take him over Malik Willis in Superflex leagues.
Oh, absolutely.
I would too. There are only 2 things I didn't like about Breece Hall's tape. One of them, he pretty much shut up with his combine performance. I didn't see the breakaway speed on film, but he definitely showed at the combine that it can be there. The other problem was that he blocked too well, and I would have loved a lot more free shots at Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy, another guy who showed up well as a freshman, but boy,
yeah.
Oh, Brock Purdy.
Other than that, I didn't really see any holes in Breece Hall's game. He has top speed, quick decision making, good contact balance. Picked his way through piles well. Cutback vision was a huge plus. Fine as a receiver and a blocker. Very rarely took negative plays. Unless, of course, the line was pushed back 4 yards and then he had to gain 3 to even get back to the line of scrimmage, which happened relatively frequently. So, Breece Hall has all the potentials to be elite. All right, let's move on to Kenneth Walker, who I think he's consensus too. By the way, Breece Hall projected to the Jets. I would hate that for Michael Carter, and he's projected in round 2. I think Breece Hall, there's a chance he sneaks up into the back end round 1.
I do think the Jets are going to go running back day 2, which is scary.
I think they will.
Can I bold call right now? If Breece Hall goes to Houston, he's a top 10 dynasty back the day after he's drafted.
I agree with that.
I think he's already top 10. I mean, let's be real here, guys. The running backs that are flooding the bottom of that is getting old.
Yeah.
And it's running backs. You don't want to be caught with the hand in the bag a year too late. And, the 17 class, which was remarkable, is starting to age out. And we're trying to want to get out of those guys into a guy like Breece Hall. This is what we want when we're aging into this. What we want. We want to trade our Cooks and Camaras in Fournettes is into a guy with the prospect profile as Breece Hall. I think he's I think he's top 12 at least, without even being drafted.
I just took over an orphan today. I just paid for a $50 orphan.
Look at you go.
Look at you.
It's a one running back. You start one running back. This owner had Nick Chubb. His backups are like Tevin Coleman and some scrubs. But I have the 101. And I'm going to happily take Breece Hall, and I'm going to try to shop Nick Chubb for a few players because the rest of this guy's roster is pretty garbage. But I'm going to be happy and take Breece Hall in this draft class and then focus on 2023 because I think this class is Breece Hall and then focus on 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I still like Walker, but he's not in Breece Hall's territory, and I'm a little concerned with Walker's ADP in rookie drafts, where I think he's again. And let's just move on to Walker.
Let's do it.
Just given he's got a great profile, right? He doesn't have the complete athletic profile. His burst score is a bit there, but every film person, I mean, literally everyone, is Walker is the best peer runner in this class, and it's not particularly close. A lot of shades of that Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor and those guys. And I know the biggest flag, and we can just jump right fucking into it, is his lack of pass catching, his lack of a college target share, where we're looking at Melvin Gordon and Josh Jacobs. I think it's what we're hopeful, and Melvin Gordon, I think it's his high end ceiling. And I think what I'm expecting is a Josh Jacobs level where people like what we see on film. I love Kenneth Walker. He can catch passes. I see it on film, but he didn't put it on his profile. It just didn't happen. And I know what the high school guys are coming out and saying that we look good in high school. Look, Darius guys look good in school, man, too. Like this, just because you can catch passes, if the team does not want to get you involved in the pass, that stuff does carry over into the NFL. And there is legitimate concern that he may just end up being a first and second down guy. And at 5'9", 211, yeah, the BMI looks great. That in itself is a concern from a durability standpoint. Does he have the body size to hold up to the potential 250 carries you could see year over end? He's not built like Nick Chubb. He's not built like Taylor. He's not built like Derrick Henry. And if he doesn't have the receiving chops to get him to that point, I mean, and he is just Josh Jacobs, then he's just constantly overvalued as a guy who doesn't catch enough passes. And 103, 102 in your rookie drafts, that's a bit rich. And like Brad said, it's, maybe we're just focusing too high on him in a weak running back class.
So,
but I do like him. So
his running ability and really size. I mean, Dalvin Cook's 5'10", 210. Kenneth Walker's 5'9", 211. They both have the BMI, and I think the running ability is the same. You mentioned the pass catching ability, and I'm kind of torn on that one with Kenneth Walker, and that's the biggest difference between him and Breece Hall to me is Breece Hall, 1, a little bit better size, 2, much more proven pass catcher. Well, I think Kenneth Walker looked comfortable catching passes. It's not something he was asked to do a lot, but the contact balance might have been slightly better. He processes equally just as fast what's happening around him. I thought the elusiveness that Kenneth Walker had might have even been better than Breece Hall, and he was on par with explosiveness. To me, the one thing that differentiated Kenneth Walker from Breece Hall was the pass-catching ability and that slight difference in size, but BMI is the best measure for a running back, and BMI checks the box. So I don't know how much I can even hate on the size. Between the tackles isn't his strength, though, which is why I think you're right. He could not end up being a 3-down back, but I see it in a different way, the fact that, it's not because of the pass catching, it's because of his ability in short yardage that I think might, end up taking him off the field. But he does also have problems with blocks, which could take him off the field. And, one of the things I evaluate heavy in running backs is blocking ability. And people are like, well, you're a fantasy analyst. Why do you do that? Here's why I do that. A running back's ability to block will immediately tell me their ability to stay on the field especially as a younger back or a non-elite back. If you can block as a running back, you're going to stay on the field on third down. I agree. Kenneth Walker does not have the third down back ability coming out as Breece Hall does because he's not as good of a blocker and he's not as good of a pass catcher. As far as a runner goes, he might be a better runner, especially in space.
That's all I've been hearing is that just from a running standpoint, Walker. That's why a lot of film guys aren't so quick to take off Walker and Hall off the same tier.
I still have them in different tiers.
Yeah. Not every film guy. That's generally what I've seen consensus wise.
And I fancy myself a hybrid anyway. So
yeah. Brad, what are your thoughts? I know you mentioned him.
The thing about Walker though is he is a touchdown machine. Even at Wake Forest, when he only hit like 600 yards rushing, he had 13 touchdowns on the ground. And then at Michigan State his final year, he had 18 touchdowns. So he's got a nose for the end zone. So even people like, oh, he can't catch PPR. If the dude's getting touchdowns, if he's getting the goal line carries, he's going to be fine in fantasy football. There's been plenty of running backs through the years that haven't had that high upside receiving ability. If he can be on the field, like you said, Hop, and he can block, that's going to allow him to be on the field, and they're going to bring him on near the goal line, and he's going to find the end zone, and he's going to be just fine in fantasy. So for me, in this draft, even if it's Superflex, it's Breece Hall at 101, it's Kenneth Walker at 102. After that, figure out what you're going to do. And then throw a dart at wide receiver. But I'm going to take my chances at the running backs in this class because I don't think it's that good. But if I had my ultimate chance, it would be 101 Breece Hall, and then 102 I'm trading for a 2023 pick and trying to get guys like Bijan Robinson and Tank Bigsby and those guys.
Just trade down from the 22. Just trade down.
Just trade down.
Trade down.
So,
trade down.
Walker is the other one getting second-round draft capital. He's projected at 58 to the Falcons, which I actually would love. So,
not a lot of scoring opportunity there. It's a bad team.
You're one.
Volume, definitely.
Volume.
Yeah, he's also young, which is great. We always talk about rookie contracts. Age is a big thing for that too, because we would love to see them at the age apex by that second contract and Walker's a young prospect too.
And other than his senior season where he saw 276 touches, he was under 200 the two previous years. So there's not a lot of wear on the tires.
So let me ask you a question right now. We saw last year how CPAT basically was the Falcons running back, and there was rumors that he might be their running back this year. If they go with Walker, does CPAT become like irrelevant in fantasy football?
No, he'll be a slot guy.
No, he can play wide receiver too, and he's still gonna be a third down guy. He doesn't become irrelevant. He's just not an every week start. He was kind of irrelevant, which is a flex play. He was irrelevant before. He just becomes a flex play. He had 1 year of flash, but he goes back to what he was before that, which is a play in good matchups. They still have giant voids at wide receiver, which Cordero Patterson can also play. And I don't think Kenneth Walker is a 3-down back to start his career.
And Patterson fell off pretty heavily towards the end of the year as Mike Davis somehow got more work. Atlanta wouldn't be a bad spot, though a lot of opportunity.
All right.
But if Walker's not catching passes, he needs to be able to score some touchdowns.
All right, the wheels are about to come off this damn thing because once you get past Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, you could have these guys in any form of freaking order. We're going to continue to go off Faceoff Sports Network ADP, fffaceoff.com, our partner site, but I'm going to vary a lot from their ADP, and I know, Dan, you will probably vary a decent amount from their ADP.
Yeah.
And Brad, you're probably going to vary from us because once you get behind these two, it's a crapshoot that we are waiting for the draft to hopefully help us sort out based on where some of these guys go. The next guy going from an ADP perspective is going at the 7th overall rookie pick. Do not agree with this at all. It's Isaiah Spiller. This is going to be the first guy that I shit on. Pretty heavily.
He, for the listeners that have been listening for a while will know this. Hopper, there's always one running back that it's always a guy that's going in that top, 1 or 2 tiers for the,
there's actually 2 in this class. By the way, I'll get to the other one, which I think will surprise you.
Is there another one? Okay.
Yeah, and I think it will surprise you unless you've peeked at my rankings because you have access
I haven't
to
seen
them.
him in a while. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a minute.
I think it
so.
will surprise you based on our previous conversations, but Spiller's the one that won't.
Well, it's Spiller, yeah. You've been off of Spiller. Spiller, the only thing that's keeping Spiller afloat is still day 2 expected DC, even though that expected draft capital is starting to dip into round 4.
And I don't know why.
In his age. It's look, film guys obsess that they don't care about his combine because of he wasn't supposed to test exceptionally well anyways. They love his vision, the anticipation, his intangibles, his ability to set his blockers, all that good stuff. And he was productive, not to the levels of like a Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker, but there was production. I've fallen off of him because I just don't think he's anything special.
Isaiah Spiller is the lesson that I learned from Royce Freeman. That's the best way I can put it. Isaiah Spiller is the lesson I learned from Royce Freeman. He's my running back 11. Spiller is.
Hey, you can't knock that, but Dan, like you mentioned earlier, I think a lot of this hype, you talk about the Devy community.
That too, yeah.
They fall in love with these players who have great freshman seasons, and then they never pan out, right?
No.
Sam Howell had that great freshman season. I think he had like 38 touchdowns. And
he was great. It was fantastic.
From there, right?
Yeah.
Isaiah Spiller had a great true freshman season at Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher. There was nobody else on the team to take snaps from him. But as soon as Jimbo started recruiting players, his efficiency started going down. His market share started going down. To me, Isaiah Spiller is nothing special. Yes, he has great vision, great anticipation, but his lack of athletic ability is going to hold him back at the next level. Not only do you have to have that vision and anticipation at the next level, but you also have to have athletic ability. You have to have speed. You have to have agility. You have to have that to be successful at the next level. To me, Devin Singletary is his absolute ceiling in my opinion.
And you know what's funny about that, Brad? Because I just saw this too, and I'm laughing my ass off about it. You know who the last 2 guys I hated were? The other than Kalen Ballage. The last 2 guys that I hated, that most other film guys were high on, or girls, because shout out Ball Blast.
Yeah, we're our homies.
Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. And guess where CBS mocked Isaiah Spiller going in the third round.
Buffalo. Oh,
to Buffalo.
Baby.
Buffalo have their girlfriend. They have that model, their girlfriend they want, and they're hoping eventually it's going to hit. But Isaiah Spiller is just like Devin Singletary.
He is.
It's not a hard concept. When you're at the elite level of a sport, you need to be fast. You need to be athletic. You need to have the elite traits on physically. You have to have elite traits physically, not just vision and all these other things.
And he
just doesn't have that.
He does not. No.
I think Devin Singletary. I think it's high end is David Montgomery because I think he's a better pass catcher than Singletary. Yeah, Montgomery was also not an athletic.
Also a decent runner though, and Spiller isn't.
I mean, I'm going off of what I see and just going off of what he was able to put from production standpoint. Probably Singletary. I think he's better overall than Singletary. I think his absolute ceiling is Montgomery. He's going to get similar DC. Similar athletic, but he's actually probably slightly worse athletically. But Montgomery wasn't a hyper athlete either, and had that second level of gear problems too. If he lands in a spot with opportunity, that'll help. The great thing about this is though, none of us are going to have him because there's so many people that still like him. There's always one Isaiah Spiller truther in people's in people's league. So
we talk databases all the time, right, Dan?
We do.
You know about my NFL Success Baseline database, which has all of the college productivity. This is how I've been pulling like 40 times in matches and everything. It's not a true database. I'm an IT guy. I can't say it's a database. I have an Excel spreadsheet because I haven't put it in an actual database, even though I should, of combine metrics, player profiler metrics, and college productivity from 2010 to 2019. 3 years to kind of know what somebody is, so that's where the lag is in there. From 2010 to 2019, there are 3 backs, only 3, that have had a 40 time as bad as Isaiah Spiller's.
Elijah Holyfield's got to be one.
Holyfield is not in.
He's a 4.7 flat.
Yeah, but he also, I think, was.
He's a 7th round pick.
Yeah, I don't think he's here because I also am a little selective when I get to the late rounds because I don't want to punch all that shit in. So I don't think I put Holyfield in here because he didn't do anything. Usually, what happens with this database is not everyone. When I get to 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, what'll happen is I'll take a selection of guys that were just guys, a selection of guys that were nothing in those late rounds, like maybe 4 or 5 of them, and plug them in here. So there are 3 guys in my success database that are even close to a 4.69. We'll say we go 4.65 and up. Here's the list. 4.65 40s and up. Samaje Perine.
Oh, you did like him.
I did like him. That was before I did anything statistically, though.
That's true.
Jeremy Hill.
One-year wonder.
Benny Snell.
Oh, God.
The aforementioned Devin Singletary. Stephen Ridley.
1-year wonder.
Alfred Morris. 1-year wonder. Daniel Thomas. Remember him? Miami. Spencer Ware.
1-year wonder.
Alex Madison.
1-year. Oh, just kidding.
Handcuff. Corey Clement. 1-year wonder.
Kind of.
Josh Jacobs.
Oh.
Theoretic Rex Burkhead. The burst score was the even more damning part in the speed score. I mean, all of it's damning. I want to look at speed score and burst score for him, too, just because this is part of me shitting on Isaiah Spiller. So guess what? You guys are going to hang out with me while I do that, okay? Okay. Sounds great.
Like we have a choice.
I appreciate your cooperation in the matter. Let's look at speed scores, which takes size into account, which 40 does not. Isaiah Spiller had a speed score of 89.7. If I go to my speed score database, here are the guys that have scored less than an 89.7. I'll actually take it up to 90, below 92. Let's put it that way. We'll give a little variance here. Corey Clement, Amir Abdullah, Joseph Randall. If you're asking yourself who, us two. Josh Jacobs.
Jacobs just dates back to how bad of a combine he had.
Darwin Thompson. Devin Singletary.
Hey, that guy again.
Rex Burkhead.
1-year wonder.
Marcus Murphy. Who?
Oh, that's right, Buffalo.
Yeah.
I think he was a Buffalo guy.
They have a type.
They do.
Jacuzzi Rogers.
Nah, Jacuzzi. Jaquez.
Theoretic. The burst score, because this is the most important thing for running backs, by the way, is burst score. Burst score and agility. But none of the running backs did agility scores unless they did them at his pro day. 24th percentile, 113.1 for Isaiah Spiller. What company does that put him in? All right, this is a little better. We're just going to go with guys below a 113.1, and I'm going to read this quickly. Yeah, we'll go below 114. How about that? I'm going to read it quickly. C.J. Anderson, meatball. Monty Ball, bust. Theoretic. Eddie Lacy.
Ooh.
Le'Veon Bell, well, that's almost promising, except for his speed metrics were way better. Devonta Freeman, okay, yeah, that hit. Jacuzzi Rogers, Jamal Williams, Cyrus Graham, Mike Gillislee, James White, who's a pass catcher. Peyton Barber, Mark Ingram, actually successful. Benny Snell, Matt Jones, Jordan Scarlett. Hey, there's Dave Montgomery. He actually showed up as somewhat of a comparison here. Raquel Armstead, Quadri Olson, Corey Clement, James Conner, Jeremy Hill, Alex Collins, Marcus Murphy. If you're telling yourself that most of these are just guys, that's because that's exactly what Isaiah Spiller is going to be. I've been boring you with stats for the last few minutes. That's why I don't lean on stats too heavy, because if you're not charismatic like Josh Larkey, it's really boring. Isaiah Spiller's not going to be successful in the NFL. I don't know how else to put it.
Now, I'm going to throw some cold water on this take because I'm not a fan of Isaiah Spiller either. But in my model, I just ran some comps. I just ran some BMI, 40 time, height, weight, broad, vert, some of those stuff. And here are some comparables to Isaiah Spiller. So you look at BMI, 29, 30, 30, and 29. You got Javon Leake. Remember Javon Leake?
No.
Yeah.
Maryland? I
have no idea who that is.
Arian Foster, Le'Veon Bell, and Isaiah Spiller. You look at the 40 time, 4.65, 4.65, 4.6, and 4.65. All four of them.
He ran a 4.69, by the way. The pro day was 4.64, but you add time to pro day numbers. He ran a 4.69 at the combine.
All right, so in my model, I have him as a 4.65. Height, 72, 72, 73, 72. Weight, 215, 226, 230, 217. Verticals, 34, 32, 31, 30. And broad, 125, 115, 118, and 114. So when you narrow it down to those, he actually has some good comparables. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of his, but, you know, there's Javon Leake at the very low end, and then you have guys like Le'Veon. But again, Le'Veon was 230 coming into the draft.
He also lost weight when he got to Pittsburgh.
Right, and Le'Veon's a giant outlier in all of this. That's why I hate the Le'Veon Bell comparison, because Le'Veon Bell is about the only guy with that prospect profile that's actually freaking hit majorly, and then didn't do anything outside of Pittsburgh.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing about Spiller. Like Singletary, the NFL liked him. Like will potentially happen because he'll get day 2 DC, is that a team's going to use him, right? He may land into a Trey Sermon opportunity where he was just a bad fit and it didn't work out. Spiller is going to go day 2, round 3. If he does land in the round 4, then we'll just disregard this. But if the NFL tells us that he's going to have some sort of split backfield role,
I'm still not going to take
find himself. The best thing about this is that none of us are high enough on him for it to matter, and why you should be not trying to draft him, because someone in your league is going to take him in both formats, especially single QB, as a mid to late first round pick. And his profile overall isn't very strong, and guys that he's potentially comped to are guys that never, outside of Bell, who hit the nuts, like he fucking flopped the royal flush, are going to be guys that are 1 to 2 year wonders that are constantly being talked about as being replaced, a la Devin Singletary.
You're constantly hoping they're going to break out, a la Theo Riddick.
Yeah, and he's not Theo. I mean, Theo Riddick is like, 5 inches smaller, smaller in weight and in a completely different role. But you're right. It's he's going to be someone that we want to move off from right away. It's that, again, like Brad and I had mentioned, he's a Debbie darling. He's he's a pure film guy darling because he's got some flashy plays that to lean on, but the NFL is so telling us that they're probably going to like him enough where he's going to have opportunity. And I'm just going to pass on it because I would rather take somebody who's got a more complete profile or has a better athletic profile.
Yeah,
and then that's that. Yeah. That's that. A lot of Spiller talk.
And we'll end it here. But in my model, when I talked about those examples of Javon Leake, Arian Foster, and Le'Veon Bell, the other back in this comp is Letty Brown, who I believe is coming out in this class, and he possibly is going to be an undrafted free agent. But he had more receptions than Spiller. He had more touches than Spiller. He averaged the same amount of receptions per game. He averaged a better reception percentage of his offense. So if you're going to take a guy that's going to be, compared to Isaiah Spiller, Le'Veon Bell, Arian Foster, Javon Leake, you might as well take Letty Brown Letty Brown in the last round of your rookie drafts or undrafted free agents.
Throws. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. Letty Brown is the same player as Isaiah Spiller.
Without the draft pedigree, which is perfect because you can get him at the end of your draft where you should be taking dart throws.
That's right. And Aaron Foster didn't have that draft capital either.
No.
And I've got coming up later on, just to telegraph anybody that's still listening, probably one of the best late round dart throws you can take because this guy is getting no love and projects very, very well, at least per my model. We'll get to him in a second. But as we look beyond Isaiah Spiller, who is a pariah, Dan, there's a guy that I know you and I both like, so we'll let Brad kick this one off and get him some more.
Well, let's wait till Brad comes back. So
okay, we'll wait till Brad comes back. So I'm just gonna go ahead and
Brad probably had to go pee.
I'll go ahead and tease it a little bit then. I have him in a tier of his own. Actually, he is the only guy I have in tier 3.
Is that Rachaad White?
It's Rachaad White. Rachaad White, per the mocks that, again, Ryan Miner is running with the face-off. He is the 4th running back off the board, early 2nd round per those rookie mocks. CBS has him.
I'll be round 5. The NFL just doesn't like him, and
they have him going to the Eagles in round 5.
It's super fucking scary.
Which would actually be a good landing spot, though, because the Eagles will use late-round running backs.
Yeah, but, I mean, you're not taking him in the 2nd round if he lands falling 5. You're not, like, he becomes a dart throw, and that's – I love White. You and I have waxed our thoughts over Rachaad White. Size, production, athleticism. The 2 biggest glaring red flags, he's 23 years old, will be 24 halfway through the season, which means by the time his 2nd contract comes up, he's too fucking old, and he's getting day 3. He's not landing anywhere near day 2, which clearly tells us the NFL does not like him as much as we do, a la running back version of Tyler Johnson. I am praying, like I did with Kenneth Gainwell last year, that Rachaad White gets day 2 and goes to a team like Kansas City or Buffalo. We tease that Eric Bieniemy was at his pro day, so maybe Kansas City does that. Maybe it is some point in day 3. But if Rachaad White gets day 2, wheels are up. He could surpass Walker for me if he goes high enough.
And even if he doesn't, he's going to be one of my favorite late round picks because I believe in the talent and everything about Rachaad White that projects for me. Like I said, it puts him in tier 3 and it puts him by himself. Now, there's another guy I have in tier 2 that's getting no love that we'll talk about probably way, way later in this segment. But Rachaad White is a standalone in tier 3 because he's good enough. He doesn't project as well as the other 3 guys ahead of him, but he's far and away better than the grouping of 5 guys behind him, which the draft, again, is going to help sort out a lot of. But, Brad, we're interested to hear your thoughts on Rachaad White because we're big Rachaad White fans over here. He's top 4 for all of us.
Rachaad White is a friggin' beast.
Mm-hmm. Yay!
Hey, Rachaad
we know
White,
why you brought you on.
His last year at Arizona State, I think of the running backs, he had like 90% market share of the receptions. Like, not only is he a elite running back, but he receives the ball. He has great athletic ability. I think Rachaad White, like you said, I have him at RB3 right now. I mean, it's limited college production, but he played at like San Antonio State Mountain Conference or some bullshit community college. But when he went to Arizona State, he was like 40% of the offense his first year. I think that increased to 60 to 70% as a junior or a senior. I think that he has all the tools to be an every down back at the next level. And I think you're going to see him go early 3rd rounds. And I want to have a piece of Rachaad White on my fantasy teams. If I can get him in my drafts, I want him for sure.
I hope he goes round 3 because it's not looking promising. As I don't know if you were back here when we were talking about him, but no mock has him as a day 2 back. So the concern is just given his age and potential for not being in a productive role as early as year 1, it just makes him a little harder. But if he goes later in the draft and he lands into a spot that's got some potential, he'll be one of our favorite late round dart throws.
Yeah, he's plus hands, subtle twitch to his game, smooth runner, creates chunk plays, strong pass blocker, above average vision. He has everything it takes to be a 3-down back. He's not super explosive. He was splitting time with 2 other backs that seemed to be seemingly good, but there's nothing in his profile that says he can't handle a 3-down workload. It's just going to be, does he get the opportunity?
Yeah, that's the big thing for him.
That is going to be the big thing for him.
Can I tell you guys? So I created this. I've created this thing called the Stark Score, where I try to I try to rate my running backs.
Let's do it. Stark Score.
And I'll tell you the highest rated running backs in this is Jonathan Stewart was the highest rated running back when it comes to the Stark Score. But then it's Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Ray Rice, D'Angelo Williams. And I'll tell you that then you get guys to like LaShawn McCoy, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Adrian Peterson. Then you get to guys like Rachaad White. Like Rachaad White just pops on this model. And I'm going to be interested to see where he goes because when he was Arizona State, I mean, he performed, right? He performed. Yeah. He can receive. He can block. He can run. I like him. And you talk about dart throw. I think that he's a first-round pick in rookie drafts. Like, depending on where
I would be scared at that point.
The 4th or 5th round. Right?
But that's the problem is that there's no mocks out there that have him going day 2. So we have to, if you're going off of expected DC, you have to expect round 4. Most mocks haven't reached round 7 yet, and that's the concern.
It's also landing spot though for me too, right? I get the concern about late round, but I mean you've had guys that go round 7 that land in the right opportunity because there's nobody really there or a team that uses backs that way. And this is kind of the pariah of the running back too, right? Draft capital with the running back only it matters less than it does, I think, at any other position. Because so many teams are using committees and hot hand approaches these days that as long as you can find a way onto the field and a way onto the roster, you have a shot. Look at Myles Gaskin. Look at Boston Scott. Look at,
those are, again, we're looking at, those are barely 1-year guys. Like, the hit rates are bigger. And what we're seeing is an adjustment into adding round 4 as a decent marker. But if like I said, if White's going round 5, and the problem is that the NFL is quickly adjusting the value of running backs right now. So even looking, further back, we're getting potential misinformation when I don't think Barkley is a top 5 pick. With how the NFL is valuing running backs nowadays. And when we saw last year, I think it was an anomaly with horrible coaching from Urban Meyer and Najee Harris just being the perfect spot at the perfect time.
And I didn't adjust running backs to go to round 4 for draft capital being a hit, but I know it was really close when I looked at it this year. And I think
it's getting definitely closer.
And I think as I start to fold in, next year we'll fold in the 2020 class, and as we go forward, that's probably going to be what happens. And even if you get a 1-year hit on running back, right? I mean, unless you're an elite talent, you're really not getting multi-year hits on running backs. So a 1-year hit on running back that you can trade to a championship contender for draft capital later is still worth a 2nd-round rookie draft pick.
Sure. Agree with that. First round's a bit rich. Yeah. And that's where White, again, you have age and you have like how people in your leagues are going to view these guys differently, right? Like,
but
we may say, trade him for a 1st-round pick in your league that you play and just may not value him in that way.
Trust the mock drafts that Ryan Miner is running is going 2-3, and that'll probably fall if he doesn't get high draft capital.
Oh, definitely. So, if he gets day 2, though, I'm telling you, he's gonna
skyrocket.
He'll be a 1st-round pick for sure. Brad will be right there. He'll be a 1st-round pick.
So, all right, let's move on. Enough about Rachaad White. We're about to get into a lot of areas I disagree with and a lot of areas we're about to deviate.
That's fair. You start clumping these guys probably too soon.
We're going to. Let's just go off my tiers for the rest of this.
Let's go off your ranks. Let's go off ranks.
I want to know the guy that you have in tier 2. I think I know who you're talking about.
Who am
I mean,
who do you think I'm talking about?
Who do I think so? Is it Keontae Ingram?
No.
Okay, but I also love him. So
I love Keontae Ingram too, and he is the first guy I have behind Rachaad White. It is not somebody I've talked to you a lot about, actually, but when I run the numbers...
Kevin Harris?
Nope. When I run the numbers from a film perspective, from a productivity perspective, and from an athletic perspective, it checks out. It's Tyler Beatty.
Is this my guy, Tyler Beatty?
It's Tyler Beatty. Tyler Beatty is in my tier 2. With
one of my favorite late round dart throws is going to be Tyler Beatty.
One of my favorite late round dart throws as well, because he is getting absolutely no love. But the guy came out and did very well at the combine. Look, he's 5'8", 197. He is Maurice Jones-Drew size. But he was hyper productive in college. I mean, this is a guy that had 1,600 yards at Missouri this year. His first year is an every down back after Roundtree left, but he's also had 300 receiving yards every year. In a program that doesn't really throw to the running backs, he projects very well athletically, 4.45 40, 100.5 speed score, 11.35 agility score, because we actually have that metric on him because he did it at his pro day. Player Profiler throws his comp out as Gio Bernard, but
love that comp.
Tyler Beatty is a guy that came out looking very well for me, and he is getting no love at all. He was a strong runner. He bounced off tackles. He played way bigger than he was. He had great vision, gets skinny at the line, great leg turn in short yardage situations, and he's a good pass catcher. He can run routes. He can make guys miss without losing momentum. He did have 3 drops in a game. Not great. Didn't show breakaway speed.
You can't get drops if you don't get targeted.
You can't get drops if you don't get targeted. That's exactly it.
Just saying.
I think his upside is Austin Eckler.
He's got to put on some. He's going to have to go to Austin Eckler workout system then. But I look, if you're looking for a guy that could become the next elite the next elite, pass catching on third down backs.
What do you mean he's got to go to Austin Eckler workouts? Austin Eckler's 5'9", 199. He's 5'.
Austin Eckler, yeah, but Austin Eckler is also a fucking workout maniac.
Beatty's 5'8", 197. Eckler's
well, sure, he has similar. He has some height and weight, but does he have the Austin Eckler
4.45 40 for Beatty? Well, and Eckler's a 4.48.
I think he might get drafted higher, but
98.8.
Eckler also is a unicorn too. So
98.8 speed score versus 100.5. He profiles better than Eckler.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean that I'm not shocked by, but Eckler also undrafted free agent.
And he had a 43.3 dominator rating. Let's just throw that out there, too.
16% target share. Look,
yeah.
Beatty will likely go day 3. And, landing spot, I don't think landing spot for him really matters because I think his role is pretty set in stone, and whoever takes him will have that role in mind already. Beatty will be that round 3 or 4 or 5 that every time auto select.
Yeah,
every time will be because he won't get the hype.
Brad, where are you at on Beatty? Because
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brad.
I love Tyler Beatty. To me, he is a weapon in the passing game. I have one red flag on him, but when you look at what he can do. Like, to me, he looks like an Alvin Kamara. He's the same build as a DeAndre Swift, right? He is a weapon in the passing game. My only red flag against him is that why were you behind fucking Roundtree for 3 years, right? You couldn't break out. But once Roundtree left, I mean, this guy blew up. But when you look at my model, he is comparable to Giovanni Bernard, Nyheim Hines, LaMichael James, DeAndre Swift, Darrell Henderson. Like, he has decent comps, and he's getting no hype, right? So regardless where he goes, I'm going to add him to my fantasy leagues, and I'm going to stash him because I think he has elite upside. I think he'd be a weapon in the passing game.
He's going to be so cheap too right now.
He's going to be so cheap.
High draft capital, he's going to be so cheap.
Which he won't. Like, as long as he doesn't land in a backfield with already established, pass catching third down back. Like,
the best landing spot for him. The best landing spot for him, in my opinion, is if he goes to Arizona and takes over the Chase Edmonds role. And he's going to be
Benjamin was one of his comparables. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be a super sleeper, and no one's even going to think about him because they're so stuck on James Conner and Eno Benjamin. But if Tyler Beatty goes to Arizona, I am smashing that any chance I get.
Yeah.
Houston, I don't want him on a good offense. I want him on a bad fucking team. Because I want them goddamn checkdowns. I want him on the field. I want Chris Thompson usage. I don't think he'll be a perennial, top 24 guy. I just don't think he's going to get the volume. But I want him if he can if he can find himself in a James White role, a Danny Woodhead role, get him onto a team either with a slow, mobile quarterback or a bad offense that's going to be behind a lot. Like the Giants could be if Barkley, potentially gets moved on from, during the draft, which there's been rumors about. On a good offense, in the other way, Kansas City, right? If you're going for, high potential volume too, I think his skill set's going to fit for a lot of different teams, and we're going to look back on Beatty as not like a Elijah Mitchell or James Robinson type of guy, but a guy that's going to find himself very, very nice Duke Johnson-esque, Theo Riddick-esque in terms of PPR volume.
So, Brad, you mentioned you got a Stark score.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
So, I actually implemented something this year, and no bullshit.
The hop with 2P score?
Yes. It is a hop with 2P scores, and what it is it's an aggregate. It's a weighted aggregate of the percentage of possible points from the way 808 guys through their gating process based on college productivity, their combine productivity, and the film scores that I give them. So I take those and then I weight them, and I also assign a confidence rating. The way that I weighted these, Tyler Beatty was above Kenneth Walker. Now, I didn't rank him that way, obviously, because I'm way more confident in Kenneth Walker's hit rate, and he's a much better prospect. So, it's not the be-all, end-all of everything, because I still apply some common logic that can't be quantified in numbers. But to give you an idea, Breece Hall is at 477. Walker's 423. Beatty's 426. Rachaad White, who's the next guy down, is at 373. Based on the way
You're very confident in him.
Well, that's not the confidence rating. I gave him a 2 confidence rating, and the 5 guys around him have a 1 next to him as far as how confident I am in that rating. So I'm not confident in how I rate Beatty because of how the NFL and everybody else is rating them. But if I'm just relying on my metrics, the way that I score people, the way that I evaluate people, Tyler Beatty is right up there with Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall. Or not Breece Hall, sorry. He's right up there with Kenneth Walker. They're like 50 points below Breece Hall. And he's well ahead of Rachaad White and the next tier guys that we're going to talk about. So
Now, the Stark score is only I only have it for running backs, and it's kind of in the beta stage, right? The highest you can score is a 6, and the lowest you can score is 1 or 0, right? If you don't even hit a 1, it don't even matter. So the only running back that hit a 6 in the Stark score is Jonathan Stewart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the epitome. After him was Nick Chubb had a 5, Jonathan Taylor had a 5, Ray Rice had a 5, Cam Akers had a 5. But when you look at this class, the highest that I have is a 3. And Rachaad White and Breece Hall both hit a 3 in my start score. Beatty hits a 2, but that's still high in this class.
Yeah.
So no matter where he goes, I'm going to be trying to get him in my fantasy leagues just because I don't know how good this class is going to be.
Yep. And for me, it's an aggregate. I put it across all positions. There's not a max and a minimum. It's a way to quantify percentages of scores I do have a max and a minimum on. So, like, the max gate 1 score I had for running backs, I think, was 18. And then, percentage of that. So, obviously, if you had 18 out of 18, you're at 100. Or maybe that was wide receiver. No, I think it was running backs. So, yeah, I mean, Beatty projects really, really well, and he gets no love. And I think we probably got to wrap him up, but I tweeted it out from the show account. I think we all just announced ourselves. We all just outed ourselves as Tyler Beatty guys.
Yeah,
people should.
But not to veer off. But when I look at the start score, anyone that's got a 0, Isaiah Spiller scored a 0 in my
Hell yeah.
start score.
There you go.
And I'll always come back around to Isaiah Spiller. I can't wait for the three of us to collectively shit on the film community when he busts.
Here's the next tier, and we'll pick and choose as we go. All right? I'm just going off of my rankings so we can group some of these guys together.
Let's do it.
The next tier I have is 5 guys deep. Keontae Ingram, Pierre Strong, Tyler Algier, James Cook, Brian Robinson.
Robinson's going to get probably draft capital. It's going to be a guy that I think most fantasy gamers aren't going to love because he's not going to catch passes, but he'll be a volume play from a runner standpoint.
He's projected round 4 to the Ravens by CBS,
which would be a death sentence to him. Like, he's not better by any metric or any way to J.K. Dobbins, maybe even Gus Edwards.
Yeah, and Brian Robinson's the lowest guy in that school. I like Brian Robinson.
The NFL loves him because he played for Alabama, but
and he has a role, right? He's a good between tackles runner. He definitely has a role. It's just, is it every down? I don't think so. He's violent. He absorbs hits. He never goes down on the first attempt. He's got plus vision, good footwork, good cutback and change of direction with no loss of speed. Gets up to speed quick. Stout blocker. A lot of hustle away from the ball. Ability to create chunk plays, and he's smooth. He just doesn't have any top-end speed, and he's not a pass catcher. He bobbles the ball a lot. Look, he's a guy that very well could be productive in the NFL with that skill set. There's a lot of things as an NFL player, as an NFL coach to love, especially that away from the ball hustle, the things that he does well in aspects of the games when the ball is not in his hands is enough to keep him on the field for Brian Robinson. It's just a matter of where does he land, what's the opportunity share going to be with where he lands, because I think between the tackles, he's great. He can stand up with anybody between the tackles in this game. Especially in short yardage. It's just the lack of top-end speed and the lack of receiving ability concerns me with him. That's why he's at the bottom of tier 2. I like Brian Robinson a lot, actually. He's a guy that I'm likely to talk more positively about than negatively. But there's holes.
He's not sexy for fantasy because he doesn't catch passes. You put him on a team like Buffalo where potential volume and goal line work, because he's a better runner than the guys they have there. That would be where you're looking at. He lands in a team like Houston, Atlanta, low scoring offenses. I'm completely off of him because it's just he needs to score touchdowns for him to be relevant, and low volume, low scoring teams just aren't going to get that done.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Brian Robinson is that I put a tweet out there. When you look at the Alabama running backs, and we're talking about clearly fantasy football, right?
Yeah.
When you look at Nick Saban in Alabama and all the players that he recruited that were actually drafted into the NFL, right? You have Trent Richardson, you have Derrick Henry, you have Mark Ingram, you have Kenyon Drake, you have Najee Harris, you have Josh Jacobs, you have Damian Harris. Like, all of these running backs have had some type of value. Then you have Bo Scarborough, right? Then you have Brian Robinson, right? So if Brian Robinson gets top 4 draft capital, whether or not he's going to be an NFL starter or a contributor, I think he's going to have some fantasy football value. So for that reason, even if I don't think he's going to be a good starter in the NFL, I think I'm going to draft him if he's there and there's no one else, because I think I'm going to be able to move him at some point, because I think he's going to get some type of value. When I watch his film, I don't really like him. I don't think he has really good vision. He doesn't have explosiveness. There's a lot of things that I don't like about him. But these Alabama running backs always seem to find a niche in the NFL and have some type of volume. Even as Damian Harris for a year, you buy him low in your rookie drafts in the late second, third round, then you flip him for a 2023 second or some. You know what I'm saying? Like you make some money off of that. Whether or not he's going to be a good NFL player, you shouldn't shy away from drafting those players, because you might be able to trade them for some value later on. So if you're sitting in the third round and Brian Robinson's staring you in the face, maybe you take him and just wait for that value to increase, and then you sell him in your league.
Sure. All right. The other guys on this tier: Ingram, Strong, Algier, Cook, Dan. Any of those guys that you would like to take the opportunity to highlight?
Keontae Ingram.
I'm glad you did.
You and I both obviously love him. Yeah. I was a big fan of him from a Devy standpoint. It's not his fault that he got, Bijan Robinson. Like, of course, he was going to transfer productive at USC. He won't be a day 2 guy probably, but again, you're talking about dart throw guys who has a 3-down skill set. He's got the size, got the athleticism. He's actually tested better than I expected. He's got the pass catching skill set. He's got the pass catching profile. He is your, he is your day 3 version of Breece Hall.
He's not even in CBS's mock draft.
Yeah, I that's the fear. He has to land with the right team, but he'll be someone I'm watching for. James Cook, I think, is going to get capital, maybe, but again, limited role. It's just a pass catcher at Georgia, and he's Dalvin Cook's brother.
Yeah,
I think that's where the hype generally just dies off from there.
For Ingram, I thought that he had good vision. He was a good runner, decisive, didn't take negative plays, tough to bring down, stiff in the blocking game, didn't have to catch a lot of passes. He could move piles, short yardage. Didn't really show outside run speed. Might be tough to come by breakaway. He wasn't flashy, but he was just
he's just a solid player, all around
player that I think in the right spot could do something. Any thoughts on Ingram? We're kind of in the everybody pick a guy mode. Any thoughts on Ingram, Brad?
No, I mean, Keontae Ingram doesn't excite me. I mean, I'm more into James Cook. When I look at the start score, James Cook got a 2 out of 6, but he also compares favorably to Kareem Hunt, who obviously has had a really good career at the NFL level. I mean, I think Kareem Hunt had a much better college career than James Cook, but in my profile, they're very similar players. So I think James Cook is around like running back 4 or 5 for me in this draft class. And again, I don't really know what to gauge out of Georgia. Like, Georgia had Nick Chubb, right? And he was the bell cow till he got hurt. Then he was splitting with Sony Michel. Then DeAndre Swift came on. Elijah Holyfield came on. Zamir White, James Cook. Like, these guys all rotate. Like, I don't know what to think. But I like James Cook and I like Zamir White. And I'm definitely going to target them in my draft. If they're there, I'm definitely going to debate whether I take them, because I like both of them. Because I don't really know what Georgia does with their running backs, but I do like the profile of Cook and I like the profile of White.
I wish Cook was a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I do too. I'll get to Zamir White in a minute too. Spoilers, but Cook was very comfortable in a third down role. What would be a traditional third down role, catching and blocking. But I thought he was underutilized, and I thought he wasn't utilized quite right at Georgia. He had the vision to pick through holes at the line, had some really good work in the open field, and definitely had long speed. The burst and agility might have been a little bit lacking, and the contact balance might not have been there. But I thought that James Cook could have been a lot more if it weren't for the existence of Zamir White. And I actually have a little telegraph here. I actually have James Cook ahead of Zamir White, which is kind of a hot take. But we're going off my rankings now to speed this up, and that's why I haven't talked about Zamir White yet, is because I have James Cook ahead of Zamir White. I think that, particularly after watching the film, but just looking at the productivity profile too, was the better back. But, we've talked a lot, or not a lot, but it's been mentioned on the show before. Dan, I think you brought it up too about how college teams just don't always utilize players in the best way.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's very evident.
I think that was the case here. The guy that I want to take a chance to highlight is, I don't want to throw shade at Tyler Algier, who I think is another underrated prospect, a lot of the way Beatty is, but Pierre Strong is a small school guy. But he was a small school guy that I think did very, very well to dominate the competition. He was fast. When he got into the open field, the competition he was facing, right? When you talk about small school guys, you want to see him dominate. And that's what Pierre Strong did. He had almost no chance of catching him. He splits outside. He's a weapon. He had touchdown passes in every game I watched. Not runs, not receptions, passes. He has a great jump cut with good vision. Hits cutback lanes well. Very comfortable as a receiver. And for arm tackles, will make you pay. It was decent contact balance. Jump cut was his best agility move. He didn't move piles that well, so it wasn't that great between the tackles. Lacks some ability in yards after catch department. And can go full stop when he's looking for a lane. But, small school running back, I think Pierre Strong Jr. is the best one in this class. And he athletically profiled very, very well. He dominated small school competition, which is what you want to see. And he's a guy that, in this tier particularly, I'm very, very interested in is potentially being elite. You had a 4.37 40 time with a giant speed score, a giant burst score, and a giant agility score.
I like him as a small school guy too. It'll be opportunity, right? Like for all these guys, he'll be the dart throw. Wherever he lands on day 3. I think I've seen some round 3 buzz as trying to figure out who's going to be the 3rd and 4th back, 5th, 6th back taken.
That would go
in the top
would
2.
Put him through the roof if he went round 3.
Yeah, I've seen small. I've seen mocks where we've seen 4 running backs go. I've seen mocks where we've seen 6 or 7. I expect a lot like last year though. We're only going to get 4, and we already know the top 2, and Spiller is probably going day 2. So, Brad, you got a guy you want to highlight?
No, looking at my model, I have Rashad White, Breece Hall, Tyler Beatty, Kenneth Walker high, and then I have Pierre Strong actually pretty high. But I know a lot of people are trying to compare Pierre Strong to Elijah Mitchell, and I don't know if he's that.
That's actually the player profiler comparison too.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that this year's version of Elijah Mitchell is Pierre Strong, and maybe he is. He scores high on my model, but I really did like Elijah Mitchell. Really, because of the landing spot last year. Like Elijah Mitchell was my 7th or 8th running back in the class pre-draft. But once he went to San Francisco, it's like he fits perfectly in that run scheme. When we see where Pierre Strong lands, he could land as some scrub team. He could land in Green Bay and be like third string and never see the field.
That was what happened to Kylan Hill, who we both liked.
Yeah, but I think looking at my model, Beatty is probably my sleeper. Obviously Zamir White. I love Zamir White. I shouldn't say I love Zamir White. The fact that he tore 2 ACLs, he still runs 4.4. I think that he's going to be a contributor at the next level. But again, I don't really care for this class. I'd rather if we could get anything from this podcast, it's try to stack your 2023 draft picks, because next year's class is going to be so stacked. even the second-round picks are probably going to be as valuable as this year's first-round picks because the talent is so strong next year. I just think this 2022 class, we're going to look back and say this might be one of the worst classes we've seen in a few years.
Just wait till your third and fourth round for running backs. If you don't get Hall, if you don't get Walker, just wait till round 3.
And I agree with that take because I don't know that this is going to be one of the worst classes. I just think this is one of the hardest to predict. I think as I look up and down, really what is my tier 3 and my tier 4 and 5, that there are plenty of guys there that you could say would hit and I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it's just going to depend on draft capital and opportunity. But, I mean, you know, Tyler Algier is the only guy in this class we didn't talk about, and really, I saw something out of him I didn't see out of anybody else in this class, which is the ability to wear down a defense as the game went. You know, he's kind of that, it's almost Derrick Henry-like, where you start out with getting nothing, and then by the end of the game, you just beat up the interior of that defense so much to where you're chunking plays. And, you know, I got Algier in this tier. You go to the next tier with Dameon Pierce, who I know Dan's high on. Dameon Pierce is the only guy in the next tier I actually like, by the way. It's Isaiah Spiller, Kyron Williams, and Tyler Goodson after that, who are all, I think, going to be terrible. But, you know, then you get behind that with guys like Kevin Harris, Hassan Haskins, C.J. Verdell, Zamir White, where, oh, wait, I moved Tyler Goodson, I got Tyler Goodson on here twice. One's higher, one's
I mean,
higher.
Dan, when you talk about, like, you say you don't know if this class is bad, it's just hard to predict, right?
That was
We've
Chris.
been playing fantasy football. We've been playing fantasy football for a long time, right?
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of things go right. You've seen a lot of things go wrong. When we're looking at a draft class and you look at a DeAndre Swift, we know he's going to be good. Jonathan Taylor, you know he's going to be good. Cam Akers, you know he's going to be good. Even Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you know he's going to be good.
I disagree on Cam Akers, by the way.
The
throwing that out there.
The reason that this class is so hard to predict is because there's no running back that we know is going to be good. I mean, internet has made us much smarter than we were years ago.
There are 2 running backs that I know are going to be good, and it's Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker.
Exactly. And that shows you how strong this class is. So if you have to guess, most likely these running backs are not going to make it at the next level.
But I think
trade your picks and focus on a class where you can identify players that are going to be
trade your high
successful.
picks, but stack later though, because
you want to stack later because there's so much. There's so much potential there.
And that's exactly it. And that's what I see different. I agree with you, Brad, on the top end of this class, right? I don't agree with your Cam Akers take, by the way. I'm still thinking Cam Akers is going to bust, and right now I'm right. Now, I don't take the injury as a win, so I'm throwing that out.
Yeah, Cam Akers was my number 2 back in the class.
I'm taking a couple of years before I take that victory lap because of the injury. I do not victory lap injuries. Just keeping my decency in.
Don't worry, Brett. I'm on your side on this. Cam Akers was highly debated,
but you know that I'm not.
Is a fucking beast.
And
Cam is a beast. Hey, Cam is a beast. Just because he tore his Achilles and he still came back and won a Super Bowl, he's a beast.
Yeah, he barely did anything in the Super Bowl. But again, I don't hold injuries against players, so jury's still out. And you know what? If I'm wrong, I will happily say I'm wrong. I've done it before, and I'll do it again.
He's gotten more humble as he's gotten older,
but
in the fantasy landscape.
But I will say with this class as well, right? Outside of basically Isaiah Spiller and Zamir White, I haven't watched as many people in this class that I don't like. And that's the hard part for me, and why I say this class is hard to predict is you could have 2 guys hitting this class, and you could have 8 guys hitting this class, and I would not be surprised. And that's because I like Keontae Ingram, I like Pierre Strong, I like James Cook, I like Brian Robinson, I like Dameon Pierce, I like Kevin Harris, I like Hassan Haskins. But there's holes in all of their games as well where they could or they couldn't. And so the difference between this class and previous classes is in previous classes, there are 5 guys you can be relatively confident in. In this class, once you got by those 5 guys, there's maybe 2 or 3 you can be maybe confident in, and the rest you have no confidence in at all.
It's almost worse than last year. At least last year we had 3 guys we felt pretty confident in.
In this class, there's 2 guys I'm relatively confident in. There's 8 guys I'm cautiously confident in. And there's 3 or 4 guys I have no confidence in. But it's like all of that shifted to that mid-tier of maybe. And that's where I think the biggest difference is in this class than in previous years. It's not at the top. It's not a sure thing. But there's so many maybes in this class that are going to have to be sorted out by where the draft capital is that I really like the idea of taking throws at not first-round guys, but second, third, fourth-round guys because of the number of players that could hit. And you know what? You're right, Brad. Trade back. Get rid of those picks. Get into 2023. Get into later picks in 2022 with higher picks in 2023. You can package that for first rounders because guess what? With the running back landscape, I would very, very happily take an extra third this year and a higher pick next year for a first-round pick to get 2 dart throws at some of these mid-tier running backs.
All the value at receiver that gets pushed down to the second.
Yep.
Now, there's 3 running backs in my start score model, and I want to know if you guys can give some opinions on that.
Yep,
sure.
Absolutely.
Tyler Goodson from Iowa scores a 3 out of 6.
Oh, he's so
Ty Chandler out of North Carolina gets a 2 out of 6, and Kevin Harris gets a 2 out of 6. Now, that's relatively low, but that's high in this draft class. What do you think about Tyler Goodson, Ty Chandler, and Kevin Harris?
I don't have an opinion on Chandler. Goodson and Harris I can talk about. I didn't watch Chandler. He's not a guy that really registered with me. Goodson I don't want to like. The profiles say I should like him. And he's a guy that when I watch this film, I do not want to like him. What I had written down for him is that he doesn't miss holes. He has enough vision to know when a hole is closed and patient enough to set up blocks. Smooth receiver. He's very choppy. Slow change of direction, not a ton of explosiveness, despite the combine numbers saying different. The combine is actually what pulls him up. He didn't have showcase an ability to create for himself, and he was a liability in pass protection. And all of that says to me that Goodson's a depth guy. I do not have a high opinion on Goodson, and I'll go ahead and give Harris, and we'll let Dan give both of them too. Harris, I actually have a higher opinion on, even though the statistics have him rated 1 position lower, actually. I really like Kevin Harris. I thought he had great vision. He read lanes well, was very quick to get downhill. He didn't miss cutbacks. He was powerful. He had no problem moving piles, great leg churn, excellent burst, fast enough to get to the edges and work outside, and perfectly adequate hands. He did have some blocking problems as well, which, again, blocking, the concern is their ability to stay on the field for 3 downs. Didn't make a ton of people miss. Didn't really have big play or game-breaking ability, but he didn't take negative plays, and I thought he was a very, very solid runner and the exact type of guy that I want to take in those later rounds. It's a solid runner with good qualities that, may not be a league winner, but he's a guy I'm happy to plug in as an RB2 or a flex in an RB3 spot in the right situation. My opinion is much higher on Harris. My rankings are slightly higher on Goodson just because of how he profiles athletically. And I don't really have an opinion on Chandler. Dan?
Same thing for Chandler. I the guy was behind Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. He got his opportunity. UNC was a bad offense, right? It was him and Howell, and then the number 1 receiver, and that was about it. Goodson's going to be landing spot dependent because I think he's just a guy, but he's got a great athletic profile. He's got great comparables. For player profiler, you're seeing guys like, CJ Spiller, fit that list. Alongside Rodney Hillman, Reggie Bush, and Darrington Evans. There's a whole range of outcomes for Goodson. I think that's what it's going to be. Iowa's not a heavily usage of the offensive side. So, I mean, that's what the numbers don't look great, but we like athletic profiles. And if Goodson lands into a ambiguous backfield, I think there's some potential there. Slightly undersized, so he's never going to be a 3-down back, but I think there's some higher upside third down back pass catching potential because he's got that 12th percentile, or he's got that 12% target share. Kevin Harris has got the ideal size, great athleticism. He's basically Zamir White with the injury problems. Less of a recruit, and but that same athletic profile. Harris is a guy that we can look back on this draft class and he can be a top 3 guy. Wasn't asked to catch a lot of passes, but he's got better than good college target share at 56th percentile. It's with him. It's going to be health and opportunity, and he can go undrafted. He could go early day 3. He was for a 3-star recruit. He was highly touted. It's just injuries, just kind of zapped him, and he's still battling back from that. But I do like Kevin Harris. I think he's going to be one of my favorite late round dart throws, especially if he can get himself into either a premier backup role or into a ambiguous backup or into a ambiguous backfield. I would love to see him paired up with like Michael Carter in New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
2 guys I want to talk about here because I think they're discussion worthy, and then we can go home. Hassan Haskins and Zamir White.
I think White for sure, because you and Brad are on opposite spectrums, it sounds like. Well, I'm going to sit back and let you guys talk.
Okay, let's talk Zamir White for a minute.
Stop.
It's worse Sony Michel to me. 2 ACL tears does not, like, Ethan Turner from Headliners does great medical work, and ACL tears is one of the most damning things that you can have for long-term health and re-injury. I already mentioned I thought James Cook was the better runner out of the Georgia backfield. Zamir White's a power runner with plus vision. Showed a little shake on the outside, but he lacked ability as a receiver. I thought he lacked burst. The acceleration left a lot to be desired, and he just whiffed on pass blocks. I think he's going to have trouble getting on the field. And to me, everybody being higher on Zamir White than I am just feels a lot like the Sony Michel situation, where I was very, very low on Sony Michel as well. Zamir White, I don't see as more than just a guy. He's not a guy that I'm high on. I know that 2 ACL tears, some of the lack of athletic ability, you can probably forgive a little bit. But, to me, there's just so many guys that have intriguing upside that Zamir White just doesn't show me that same type of intrigue for me. It's just not somebody I can get behind from a film standpoint. He wasn't my lowest rated guy. He was bottom 4. But the gate 1 percentage, which is all based on productivity, he was my second lowest. That's all and the 2 ACL tears definitely hurt that. But college productivity being what it is and injuries being what they are, didn't really do. Combine scores are kind of throw out for running back because they got cut off early. And film-wise, he's not any better than a guy like C.J. Verdell. He was kind of in the Tyler Goodson range for me. He was not a guy that I was very high on either. So I just didn't see it from Zamir White. I didn't see much that I liked. I know I'm going to be an outlier on that because a lot of people do like Zamir White. But I think he's worse Sony Michel, and he's just kind of destined to flounder, especially absent the right situation.
I mean, I can't disagree. I mean, again, this class is mediocre at best, but he tore his ACL, I think, senior year of high school, and then as a freshman in college, right? So he didn't really start out really well, but once he got his footing, He hit 800 yards back-to-back seasons. Right at the combine, he ran a 4.40 on 2 ACL surgery knees. Like, the dude is an athlete. His nickname is Zeus. Right, he runs people over and he outruns people. Again, I don't know how to explain the way Georgia uses their running backs with Swift and Sony and Chubb and Elijah Mitchell and all these players. But Zamir White, I think the NFL is going to like Zamir White a lot differently than the fantasy community likes Zamir White. I think Zamir White could be one of those players that could come in and be an Arian Foster type player where he's kind of this no-name guy, but he's got all the tools to be an elite player at the next level. And with the 2 ACL surgeries, likely he's not going to have any setbacks again with those knees. So again, he's somebody that I'll probably take late in drafts if he's there, late second, early third if he's available. And also, depending on the landing spot, he could land somewhere like Houston or Seattle, where in a year or two he has a chance to be the starter. And again, it's a mediocre class, but even after 2 ACL surgeries, he still ran a 4.4. And when you look at running backs, you'd love to see that speed. I think his vertical jump was 33 inches. He had a 128-inch broad jump. He is an athlete, an absolute athlete. So as long as he can put it together, I think he's a good pass blocker. And he played at the highest level in college in the SEC. I wouldn't sleep on him. I mean, I'm not going to go out of my way to draft him, but I wouldn't sleep on him for sure.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to is Zamir White is that every year you have to pick a guy that you're okay with being wrong on, right? And I think that I've decided that Zamir White is the guy that if I'm okay with being wrong on him. I look at his season, single season productivity, because you mentioned, right, that he got off to a slow start and then he went for 800 and 770 779 yards. When I pull up, the NFL success numbers there, right, and the guys that sit around, who are guys that produced at any level or didn't produce even with under 1,000 yards in any single season. And I'm just going to run through the list. Here are guys in my prospect database that have had under 1,000 yards in any single season. Let's go with under 900 because he never topped 900. Make it a shorter list. Christine Michael, Damian Harris, who I like, actually. He was at Bama and at a very mixed company backfield. Ty Johnson, Chris Thompson, Matt Jones, C.J. Anderson, Meatball, Jordan Scarlett, Bryce Love, Spencer Ware. But then there are other guys, too, that could be the reason that I'm wrong, like Alvin Kamara, Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, Chris Carson. But then there's Caleb Lodge, who is probably my most hated running back, along with T.J. Logan, Alfred Blue, Bryce Brown. So, could he be a Chris Carson or a Josh Jacobs? Yeah, I think that's probably the ceiling that you're hoping for. Or even Kenyon Drake, who's had some productive seasons, who I'm actually a fan of. I don't think he has the upside that Kamara did. Kamara was so low because he was extremely misused. And I just look at that productivity, and it's a pariah because the athletic profile, I agree with you, it's absolutely there. And the athletic profile will be the reason I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you just listed a bunch of running backs that ran under 1,000 yards, but they were all healthy. They were all healthy running backs. Zamir White was a 5-star high school recruit, a 99% 5-star high school recruit. And the only reason that he struggled is because he had 2 knee injuries.
He had 2.
Now that that's behind him, right?
How much further behind him can you get than a single season, though? And that's kind of where I'm at, right? He hurt one his senior year of high school and one his freshman year. So his ACL injuries are, let's see, his freshman year was age 9, 2 years behind him based on this year, and he still only managed 850 yards. year 2 versus year 3, right? We see ACL injuries all the time in the NFL. A year removed from ACL injuries, guys are producing at the same level they were producing at before the ACL injury, in most cases. Dan and I have famously argued about this a lot on this show, particularly with Cooper Kupp, who's not a running back, but, still a great route runner, which requires a lot of ACL strength, especially in change of direction. And I just don't know that the difference in year 2 removed from an ACL injury to year 3 removed from an ACL injury is enough to sell me on the fact that the injured knees were the problem.
Now, when Zamir White played at Georgia, he was the leading rusher every season that he played.
So was Elijah Holyfield, I think.
Well, yeah, he and DeAndre Swift rotated. But Zamir White was a leading rusher, and James Cook. I mean, so I don't know what else he could have done. I know he didn't hit 1,000 yards, but in that offense, I don't know what else he could have done. He was the leading rusher both years he started.
Well, and you're right about Georgia kind of being a pariah, right? Because DeAndre Swift. Actually, I want to go look at this real quick.
So we're basically arguing over knockoff Nick Chubb versus knockoff Sony Michel, because Nick Chubb, one of the best pure running backs we've seen in a very long time.
DeAndre Swift went over 1,000 yards on the same number of carries.
Elijah Holyfield only had 1 year of production basically, and that was his final year when Swift was a freshman.
Yeah,
a sophomore.
Swift had 2. He went over 1,000 yards on 160 and 196 carries. That 160 carries is right around what Zamir White got. Zamir White got 3 less for 150 yards less. Nick Chubb had 2 seasons over 1,000 yards, but a lot more work.
He had his ACL tear in between, so he came back so strong,
and then he came back very strong.
I mean, he's insanely good.
So we're not debating like RB1, RB2. We're debating like if you're in round 3, are you taking Zamir White or Tyler Bates?
Again, the answer is going to be landing spot and opportunity in year 1, because these are the guys we don't care about what it's going to look like in year 2, year 3, because they're probably going to be on either different teams or we're going to be looking on the next year's class.
The answer is that if in round 3 of my rookie draft, I am taking Keontae Ingram before the draft. This will all change after the draft, but before the draft, if I'm in round 3 of my rookie draft, I am taking Keontae Ingram, Pierre Strong, Tyler Algier, James Cook, Brian Robinson, Damian Pierce, Isaiah Spiller, Kyron Williams, Tyler Goodson, Kevin Harris, Hassan Haskins, and C.J. Verdell ahead of Zamir White.
All right.
One thing that
I'm okay with being wrong.
One thing that I take in consideration is like when these guys come out of high school, and for Zamir White to come out as a 5-star recruit, 99 percentile, that holds a lot of weight for me, because I think the injuries held him back, but I think he was probably one of the best running backs in his class, and that tends to translate. So when I've done a lot of research, you could be a 5-star athlete and not make it to the NFL. But if you're a 5-star athlete and you do make it to the NFL, your odds of hitting are a lot. You have a bigger chance of hitting if you actually do get drafted and you were a 5-star athlete. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I will straight up tell you, I pay no attention to that. I don't pay attention to Debbie. I don't pay attention to high school. And maybe that's a flaw in my evaluation process. We'll find out. At the end of the day, if you're right, I will pour a glass of bourbon with you. We'll cheers it, and I will tell you you're right.
No, I don't need to be right, but we'll cheers bourbon no matter what.
We will. But I'm just saying, I will adjust my take if I'm wrong. Zamir White is the guy that I have picked that I am okay about being wrong on this year.
The one caveat is if I'm ever debating on a player and they are a 5-star high school athlete, I tend to give them the benefit of the doubt that they have the tools to be successful at the NFL level.
I just have a lot of recency bias because, I looked at some of these guys that are another benefit of the fact that we rely on, I guess, shout out Matt Kelly and formerly Josh Larkey, that we rely on player profilers heavily as we do when we do this stuff, is that before the combine metrics are there, the high school metrics are there. And, you can see how far guys come in between the two. And being a 5-star out of high school, I'll give it to you on Zamir White because he athletically profiles great. Doesn't always translate that way. But I totally understand where you're coming from. And again, you could be right. You are in the majority in your feelings as Zamir White, and I know that I am in the minority. And I'm okay with that. It's a guy I'm okay with being wrong on. And in 3 years, when we're all still doing this because you're going to stick around too, we'll bring you on for this recap episode.
I can't wait for Zamir White and James Cook to just be guys.
Well,
and be like,
let
22 class is terrible.
Hop, let me tell you something. If you don't look at the high school recruiting, so the way they recruit high school, there's only 32 5-star athletes a year. There's only 32 because what they're predicting is one for every NFL team. So for Zamir White to have a 5-star rating, he was basically one of the best 32 best players in his class.
Can't wait for him to go to the Rams, and then I can just root for him and Cam Akers to both fail.
You know who my favorite 5-star recruit is? I didn't make it, Brad. Trey Quinn. Trey Quinn.
Mr. Irrelevant.
He was a 5-star?
He was a 5-star at LSU, and then because he didn't get playing time, he transferred to SMU with Cortland Sutton.
No, don't get me wrong.
I also like the whole 5-star. Like I like knowing what college thought of these players, and White's going to be like we guys have talked about. It's was it injuries or was it just Georgia's lack of usage of them, or is White just not fully completely back yet? The ACL on both knees, ACL tear in both knees. It's like the guy is off to a rough start in his football career, but the NFL has told us through mocks that they kind of like him. So again, let's come back to this, Brad. We're gonna have you back on in the redraft on the draft recap anyway. So let's talk about these guys when we get our landing spot in our DC. I love you guys, but I'm ready for fucking bed.
I'll come on anytime you guys want.
Yeah, I know you will, and I want to get you back on for the recap so we can go back and rehash some of these conversations when we get the most important information, and that's where they're playing, football for the first 4+ years.
That's right.
Okay, I guess this is where I wrap it up, huh?
So, do you have anybody else you want to talk about, Hopper?
I'm sure. No, I do not.
I'm sure you may.
I think we.
Okay.
No, I don't. CJ Verdell was an interesting receiving prospect to me, but I don't really have anybody else that I want to talk about. I think we covered it all. Nobody else I want to shit on either. Actually, one guy we didn't get to that you might want to talk about though, Dan, Dameon Pierce. Yeah,
Dameon Pierce, highly underutilized in Florida, but was pretty much a good running back room his entire career. From a production standpoint, it's obviously didn't hit a lot of check marks, but he's big, he's fast, and he's getting that buzz, potential early late day 2 buzz.
Yeah.
It could be a Kamara like situation where it was just highly underutilized in college, and then he finds his footing in the pros.
He has
again another day 2 or another round 2, round 3 guy. I like.
He has great acceleration. He hits the hole like it's a casting couch edition. Breaks Brad missed.
Oh, you say that one till now?
I did. Yes.
You gotta insert that. You gotta insert that one fucking 2 hours ago.
Look, man, I don't.
When the crowd hasn't given up on us.
I don't remember the shit that I put into these things as I write them and who I wrote something funny about. It's just whatever I decided to. But Dameon Pierce hits the hole like it's a casting couch edition. It's got to be one of my all-time greatest notes.
I'm so pissed that got used his first time
in 3.5 hours.
And it showed us 3.5 hours into his recording.
You know what? You can be pissed off about that. That's why you got to listen to the whole show, because you might get great anecdotes like Damian Pierce hits the hole like it's a casting couch edition.
The one goddamn degenerate Ryan Miner.
Keep watching Brad to see if he's paying attention or if he'll pop for that one. He has not yet.
He gets about a lot of bourbon. Best peed like 6 times.
Anyway, breaks a boatload of tackles. Comfortable as a route runner. Vision is there. One cut, downhill runner. That one cut is pretty good if the hole isn't available. Not elite agility. Pierce is a guy that sits right up there with the Hess. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. I've been drinking. He's the first guy having the tier 4.
Yeah.
Ahead of Spiller, ahead of Williams, ahead of Goodson, ahead of Harris, ahead of Haskins. So I wanted to make sure we got him in there. All right, that's the show. Brad, one more time. Where can people find you? Where can they check you out? How can they support you? Because you're a great conversation every time we have you on.
Hey, RotoLounge on Twitter at RotoLounge. I got the new YouTube, the Bourbon Lounge, where we do whiskey reviews, and then hashtag Bourbon Bowl 3. If you're interested, hit me up on Twitter at RotoLounge. Appreciate you guys having me for sure.
Always time, buddy. Always.
Right. I've had a good amount of bourbon.
This is so good.
This Knob Creek is good. This Russell's is good.
How was that Knob Creek?
Yeah, we should compare notes on the Knob Creek real quick.
Mine was super nutty, but I like it.
Mine is also super nutty. It's the proof definitely shows. It had some pastry notes to it though. It's a solid drink. I mean, you know, it's not something I'm going to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's the best thing I've ever had. But it's, you know, Knob Creek's a very solid pick. Anytime you can find a store pick, especially. So I'm at Beerfield Hop. He is at Beerfield Theory. We are presented by the Face Off Sports Network, who's actually, they don't care. But if they were a real network, that I shouldn't say that. They are a real network. They're very good to work with. They were bigger assholes. Let's put it that way. They'd probably be mad we just did a 3.5-hour episode. But they're not. They let us do what we want to do, which is why we love them. So, Face Off Sports Network, fffaceoff.com. We're part of them. We're Beerfield Podcast on YouTube. If you want to watch me simulate Carson Strong getting tackled behind Washington's offensive line, or be shirtless, or anything else that happened on this episode, if you're on YouTube and you're like, holy shit, I don't want to see these guys, Beerfield, everywhere you can get podcast. We'll be back next week. We'll have Miguel on to do wide receivers and tight ends. I would say that'd be a shorter episode, but I can't promise that given the wide receiver class. I think that's going to go on Thursday or Tuesday. Tuesday. I think that's going on Tuesday. So Tuesday next week, we'll be right back here. Thank you guys for tuning in. And now I'm not using the graphic that has all the outdated information. I'm just going to use the intro graphic again. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.